Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Aurora. It is November 9th, 2022. This is level 2, lesson 4. Wait, let me scroll and just make sure I've got the right one. Yeah, level 2, lesson 4, all about telepathy and the functioning of the higher senses. Of course, I have my notes over here if you see me looking off into the side. And this is the level 2 recording for the advanced students. And also, you are open and welcome to be here in the One Room Schoolhouse. If you've never watched any of my other videos before, you're welcome to be here. And if you're a level 1 student, absolutely welcome to be here. This is all about, when I talk about the higher faculties, and I'll show you some imagery, but I teach all about the chakras. And of course, this should be becoming very familiar to everyone that's in the class now. Chakras of the body, four vortex shape, or 2 tori at 90-degree angles, how this is the shape of time, how this is also the shape of possibilities and probabilities, how this represents quote unquote math equations of your life, or the various time tracks or pathways that you can make as expressions of your individual choice as you are exploring the vast multiplicity of or array of different choices that are spread out before you, of different possibilities that are spread out before you. That this is also representing your coherent light body, coherent meaning light waves that are organized, that stick together, and also representing, as I spoke about in last week, your connection to family of light. All right, that there is an entire wonderful supportive system of interconnected force fields that is coherent light body, that is a higher dimensional level of being, and that is actually the goal or end result of what happens when you transcend this level of being matter, gestating in the womb of matter like your mother, but which is a very positive state to be in, that a lot of people are just kind of ready to like toss it out, like, old Kleenex, like, I don't like this matter, I don't like this body, toss it out. But no, this is like an amazing opportunity to be here in this level of reality, because represented in red, this level of reality here is where all of these vectors and forces and possibilities actually connect and interact. That everything that's in here is not connected. That's another dimension that is holding things apart, but you connect here at the source, which is also the destination, and you connect here in this outer edge, the perimeter of this diagrammatical shape of reality. The physical reality is the stage, quote unquote, not like a disassociated sociopathic stage, but a very real place or forum within which all of these abstractions can come into a state of interactivity. In large part, this happens within your own body. All right, so very important recognition goes to the physicality structure. And then today, so I'm talking about the higher senses. So I'm talking about everything that is the level of green and above. So in your energetic anatomy, I did a lot of work talking about your red chakra, basis of everything that you are, your root chakra that kind of connects you to the earth, orange, which is emotion, that is mammalian, and then yellow at the solar plexus here, which is just above your navel and below your rib cage, that's the level of daily waking human intellect. And I've spoken to openly and alluded to also the sense of that being a hacked operating system, OS human, not actually originating with human, and with many, many backdoors that hackers and original programmers use as a way of being able to, against your willpower and against your consent, enter into your verbalized mind and enter into your daily conscious waking mind as a way of destabilizing you. That these chakras are, I'm showing you a static image here, but that it is actually made out of whirling and swirling energy, and that it has different contextual axes and axis that can change relative to the context that you find yourself within. So you want all of your chakras to be in these perfect alignments and spinning at an optimum rate in order to be able to maintain this stability. And your heart is one of them. So now we're getting into what this is. When I talk about your higher senses, I'm talking about everything that is at this fulcrum of unconditional love. Turn on my piano, unconditional love. I have my synthesizer on. I can play some music for you that I was creating later. Unconditional love. That is a prerequisite for being able to, I call it matriculate to the university of the universe, but it really means that you get enough energy in your bank account, quote unquote, your energetic bank account, to be able to make these higher centers functional. That the big takeaway from today's class sharing is that for a long time in recorded human history, humans defined themselves as everything below the level of unconditional love. And it was very, very hard to activate this, get up to this level, get revved up metabolically to that level, and then be able to generate enough of the love tone energy to activate these higher senses. But the higher senses are very, very much a part of you. They are absolute. So they're absolutely your birthright. To finish that sentence before my brain moves on to the next thing. They're absolutely a part of you and something that you are worthy of using, worthy of having, worthy of accessing. You've been artificially cut off with them or separated from them. You could think of them as whatever, like an inheritance or something like that, where you're like, I was supposed to have this, as a child, but I didn't inherit it until now, whatever age you are, whatever decade you are. But it's still yours. It was always meant to be yours. So that's in order to break through the trauma of, wait, this stuff is great, but how come I didn't have it before? Yes, humanity has been artificially suppressed, and a lot of it has been about energy blockages at the level of the intellect. And a lot of the stuff, the intellectual questions and the basic substrate structure of language and of questioning is often just erroneous from the start. Like the errors are in the direction that all of this perception and questioning is even happening, and that a lot of that blocks out this heart, which is meant to be, again, a big open central processing unit where everything comes in and out through your heart. All of the signals that are coming from the higher dimensional, less dense realms come through your heart and then into your intellect and into your body. And all of the experience of being here in the body, having a cellular structure and having mammalian emotions and having thoughts about your cellular structure and your mammalian emotions and everything that you're experiencing in reality also goes through your heart, your central clearinghouse, and then goes through your higher senses, which is essentially how you communicate with higher dimensional, less dense realms. But this area of the higher senses, it's you, and the higher dimensional, less dense realms are also you. And I'm always saying, spoiler alert, that the sun and the stars are you and you're God. And that is the realization, the journey of realization, of self-realization that each one of us is on. We're all individual, but we're all on the same journey, but the path doesn't look exactly the same. But the destination, where's my little sculpture? The destination is the same, because all of these vortices, as I taught in the previous class, all point to the same central convergence point, and they all represent a life spiral of many different versions of you. Let's go to some wonderful pictures that really tell a story here. That is why I do this, because the picture's worth a million of the flapping of my moving mouth parts. Okay, so this is a really beautiful sketch that came out of one of my earliest notebooks being here. And I shared it in my deck of cards that I've got available for people if they want them, because I was trying to find ways to be able to share as many images as possible. Like, I could put 110 images on those cards. So I did a lot of these types of sketches and drawings before I really became articulate the way that I am now to be able to describe these concepts. And what you see here is that 4 vortex shape that is at the level of the brow chakra. And your higher faculties, I should also be really clear, because I always go over or diminish, don't talk enough about your throat chakra. That's up from your heart. You have your throat, and this is truth and communication. That's really big stuff. Then up from there, you have your brow. That's insight, your eye of insight, your eye of time. It is your connection to Christ consciousness, which I will continually emphasize is a non-denominational cosmic level of perception and awareness that has been exemplified by excellent teachers and avatars, avatar from Sanskrit, to come across waters, embodiments of that Christ energy and level of awareness and perception that have been in here, in this world, performing different missions, be it to share information or to, with their behavior and sharing, create we would say magical integuments, supernatural integuments, perform miracles to set things right. It's the master teacher. This is the master teacher, and that Jesus Christ, or that's the Anglicization version of Yeshua. A person named Yeshua who lived 2,000 years ago was one of them. I know that's a lot to get out, because I never want to diminish those who are following their deeply held beliefs in a particular religion, in Christianity. And also, I want to be very, very clear that this chakra on your body is an area of energetic anatomy that is present on each one of us as a full spectrum human. It is not only there if you are a particular believer in a particular doctrine or church of the earth. This is not ever to condescend or to diminish people that are a part of that doctrine, which can be very beautiful and has some very positive and beautiful aspects to it. And also, you have a Christ chakra, even if you are a Hindu, a Muslim, Shinto, pagan, and mystic, or not having a particular religious affiliation. It's like saying, you're going to press admit someone. It's like saying that you have an aperture that lets in light. Just like if you have eyes on your face here, you have apertures that let in light. This is literally an aperture that lets in light. So, and I don't need to sound so forceful or so defensive in terms of Christianity. It's just a very fraught topic. And you guys can see also, I wear a cross. My cross is not necessarily to denote an affiliation or a condonement of earthly Christian churches, although I don't, have anything, whatever, diminishing to say about the people that participate there. It is meant to be in alignment with this galactic level of Christ consciousness that is also at the level of stars, galaxies, light itself. Wait, let me just mute everyone. Just gotta meet you guys. Not that I don't love you. What's beautiful about Christ, the consciousness level that is exemplified by this insight area here. You are a facet on a multifaceted mosaic composite eye. And it is an amazing viewpoint that is for so many different organisms, not just humans. In this planet, it is for dolphins and redwood trees and butterflies, insect life, dogs, cats, even water, or a mineral or a crystal. These are all things that are part of that crystalline Christ consciousness. So it is not, the things that I teach are not in conflict with the teachings of the doctrine of the Christian church here, but it's definitely an expanded, non-denominational and galactic viewpoint, meaning of the stars at the level of that scale of galaxy. But when you're in that level of scale, you're like, yes, I see there's no conflict. But when you're down below the cloud cover, then sometimes it can be very difficult to have that level of perspective. This is why I give so much verbal energy to being very, very clear on this. But I also want you to feel that this is for you, that this is not only for people that either worship from a particular holy book or that have a particular organizational affiliation. This is an aperture that lets in light. Light is non-denominational, meaning that it's not just for one group of parishioners. It is for everyone, like the sun in the sky. All right, guys, just get past the English language on this. The sun in the sky, it falls on all of these organisms, or it emits to all of these organisms. It is a beautiful, nourishing light presence. And that is the light presence that we ingest and align with using this, which is your eye of time. Time is an abstraction. It flows to you, it flows through you. And this is the aperture through which time flows. But we don't just have this aperture here. And also you can see from that, with the reason why I'm sharing this with you, it's because this shows many, many figures, smaller anthropomorphic figures clustered around this central convergence point, which is a place in your own mind or brain that is like a miniature sun. And all of them are you. That's what I'm trying to get across here. But these are all different fractal aspects of yourself and of your own journey. You are continually meeting yourself on your journey. You are protected and surrounded by aspects of self that you could consider the wise, ascended version of yourself in the future. And on this telepathic network, you are connected to other levels and aspects of self, and that those other levels and aspects of self may or may not be human. I always use these examples. It might be a redwood tree, it might be a butterfly, it might be a dolphin. That's just on this planet. And then also you can, may, and should connect telepathically to aspects of self that are not defined as human and that are not defined as earthly, and that still exist and that are on this telepathic network. So that was like so many words. Like, wait, Aurora, just drink some structured water. Drinks, everybody, take a breath. Okay, throw defensiveness out the window now and just talk about all of this. The higher senses rest on this beautiful foundation, like a plateau of unconditional love. Once you get to this level and plateau foundation of unconditional love, like all of these words that I just said, that's why you can throw them out the window, because they are not relevant. But underneath the cloud cover down here, the level of the intellect, sometimes I have to speak that way to the intellect. The higher faculties is like literally an apparatus. If you can imagine all of these different little wheels that go around, gears like go around like this, gears go around like this. And you have also an incredibly important gear or wheel up here at the top of your head that spins around in this direction. So you have the one that comes out of your brow, that is the Christ consciousness one, that spins around in front of your face, almost like a faceplate, and also to the sides of your head and also behind your head. And then you have truth, which is kind of like your neck, and your head kind of sits upon it. You can feel it. You can feel it there. I know you just felt it. Kind of like a torus around here that supports the left-right turning of your head. And then all of that rests upon the giant force field that is your heart. And your heart, we've talked about this on the level 1 teachings about mastering the mind. The mind being an inherently flawed operating system that once it gets going, either in its suppositions, presuppositions, questions, and perceptions, or verbalizations, has an inherently destabilizing effect on the rest of your chakras, both going into your emotions and physicality and going upward into your pure insight. The mind is inherently flawed. So what we are trying to do in these bodies and in these cultural pretexts that have mind as part of it, because you come here as a non-verbal pre-verbal infant and you don't have your mind yet. You get your mind, you download OS human, like here's your hard drive, go from mommy and daddy in the school system going into here, download OS human now, like buffering. Not that I'm a transhumanist, but I'm just joking using these metaphors. That then you're like, oh, like I'm an individual and I have an ego, and here's language, and here's the linear understanding of time, and all of that. These are all of these barriers and hackings, and also the sense of having a verbalized mind. So the level 1 stuff, lesson 5 about mastering the mind, it is about not only mastering the process of finding inner silence, which is having a pause button on your mind. Like one of the bad things about bad, quote unquote, troublesome things, one of those pesky things about the human OS is it comes with an on button, but no off button. And then it's up to you to create the off button or to press pause on your mind. That is what the practice of self-cultivation and meditation is all about. And meditation can be something where you sit in perfect stillness and simply focus on distancing yourself more and more and more from thoughts that come through you until those thoughts are abstractions that are not the true you, and you have plenty of inner breathing space. And or I do a lot of active meditations, like I'll do some kind of like exercise, or I'm doing something or walking or something like that, that is kind of repetitive, where your body just has its own wisdom to do that. And then I don't have to be thinking it, and I can just be like, oh good, like I don't have to think. Or any kind of meditation or mindfulness practice, which is where you are aware of your mind and simply not feeding into or exacerbating your mind while you're going through your life. All of this is part of true galactic citizenship, activating these higher faculties here right now in your own individual bodies and in the planetary unfoldment that is planetary ascension, is everything about regaining your galactic citizenship. Again, like passing through the trauma or healing or assuaging your trauma of, wait a minute, this is good stuff. How come I didn't have this before? Yes, unfair things have happened and things have been taken from you. They're now being given back to you. And that's also part of what I talk about in the recorded lessons, which I did in 2012 and 2013. It's 10 years later, and I talked about the planetary quarantine, the sense of Earth being encapsulated in terms of your mind space and whom you could connect with mind to mind, because telepathy is a time phone that you can use to be able to call up anywhere, anywhen. That's part of some of the moving beyond linear time. Like you get your human OS, you're like before, during, after, or first, second, third, or a linear sense of time. But when you become telepathic, like that picture of the face with the many multi-figured forms all clustered together coming into your mind, that's you across time. That's you in all of these different, not only levels of time, but levels of dimensionality. And so it is a broadening of the mosaic of your experience and the interconnectedness of your life events. It's not like, first I lived as Van Gogh, first I lived as Cleopatra, then I lived as Van Gogh, then I lived as Aurora. Like, it's not like that. It is all of these things happening at the same time. And that, of course, not all of your concurrent lives are famous historical figures. And I'm using these as examples if I need to go to the intellect in order to be able to defend myself here. Feeling a little bit beset, as you can tell sometimes, not by you guys, but by the intellect itself, which I think is not always healthy. It has some pathogenesis in it. Learning to control your mind is a prerequisite in order to be able to be a responsible, maturing, if not adult, person in the cosmos, because your mind and your brow chakra and your crown chakra, as these two interpenetrate and relate to one another, is how you create reality. So in teaching this 10 years ago, I was saying, hey, it wasn't fair, and Earth was encapsulated or kept away from connectivity and empowerment of being able to directly create your reality and talk with others in the cosmos, and they're creating their reality, and for you to be a part of this beautiful co-creative community. And the co-creative is with the divine presence. Again, when I talk about God or the divine presence, I'm talking about something that is a complete abstraction beyond anthropocentrism, that exists more as a vibrating field of potentiality and perfect divine thought patterns, and is also hugely loving and compassionate, but simply doesn't necessarily have a human face or egocentric desires or behavior patterns. Still a person, but a person different from the way you may project the definition of being a person because you're human and you've also been acculturated to a lot of effed up people around you. So please don't project that expectation that God will be a person like the people that are around you, or shaped like a human face, or be effed up like humans are effed up, because you're coming out of your trauma because you're traumatized because of a lot of the unfair things that have happened. As you begin to activate your higher senses, and your higher senses, again, reiterating, pardon me for being repetitive, truth, which is communication, intellect, insight beyond words, because words are hacked. So this is pure knowing and pure seeing. And the crown, your divine, innate connection to God, that abstract creator, energy, force field, sustainer, creator, upholder, nourisher, and total guide for you. So it's a bit precarious when you just have this aperture open, but you don't yet have the guide. And let me drink a little bit and I'll give you my customary analogy. So for people that have been in the class before, you've heard me say this before. This is like getting your library card. So how do you activate your higher faculties, Aurora? You got to get enough gas in your car or enough energy in your quote unquote energy bank account. You do that through meditation and mindfulness. You're accreting light. You're eating mindfully. I talked all about that also in class, and getting this fast enough so that you've got this beautiful whirling energy field that then you can have these other non-physical apparatuses placed upon there. And when you activate or raise energy up to this level here, you will begin to receive information. It is like becoming literate. Like the analogy of learning how to read. When you learned how to read, a very positive and empowering step, like little kids are very proud, like I read the word cat, C-A-T spells cat, and that is important stuff. But then once you become literate, there's all of this information that is available in the world, and it is essential to be guided. So like when you were a little tiny child, you might have gotten your first library card, and then you could go into the big room of books, the library that contains everything, and you have your library card, and there's everything in there. And then the question is, what do you read? Like, you need to read at your comprehension or reading level. Totally inappropriate to give children reading materials that are about sex or body processes that they can't comprehend or experience yet. Also not appropriate to give them books that are about violence or war and things like that, should be shown in the cultural context of what is war and why does this stuff happen. Also not appropriate to give them things that contain words that are way beyond their vocabulary. So you need a librarian. This is your library card here that allows you to connect telepathically to a world of pure light, of pure insight, of pure master teacher and divine guidance. And this is your librarian that tells you you're going to want to check out this book. It's called C-Spot Run, and it's perfect for you, and it's a good starter. all right, like shows you the beginner section. Please be humble. In all of these teachings, this is one thing that hasn't changed in the past 10 years. I remain humble and say like, I'm just learning. And please be humble also to like have that beginner's mind of like, I don't know everything, I'm learning and growing in my own artwork, in my own artistry. So a lot of my higher faculties, as they are awakened, first experience like my eyesight coming online in my coherent light body to be able to see and know these things as the paintings that I paint over here. So the way I'm quote unquote wired, or my inner proclivities, visual sense very strong and already coming with some artistic training, even though I'm a walk-in, that's what was the already here in the body learnings about the academic side of art and art skills, all right? So all of this light of information coming through that context of what is here translated or seen through a lens. Again, this is chakra in front of your face. It's kind of like a lens, and it is how you translate the abstract waveforms and possibilities of the world around you into an experienced reality. So my lens has, as part of it, visual arts. And when I see and perceive these abstract cosmic higher dimensional truths that contain math and form and shapes and polygons and also movements in the way that they all fit together and move perfectly, I interpret it very visually. However, not everybody has their eyesight wake up first, and there's no better or worse. It's just like being a little infant, and your coherent light body is your body that has a real strong anatomy, like a very strong sense of organizational features, and is in a higher dimension. So you're in your physicality dimension. You're like, okay, like you've mastered this. Most of my audience here are adults, even though I have some beautiful families that listen to or watch my videos as an entirety. So that's why I keep my language like very good here, that I will never be casual with my use of language for little kids' ears. But they watch with their little infants that listen to my voice. So if you're a little infant, thank you for tuning in while you're still very connected through your crown chakra and haven't yet had your human OS downloaded to you too much. Thank you for just tuning in and listening to my voice. But most of my audience are adult humans who already have their operationals, their OS, their verbalized language system going. And then there's the sense of being able to tune in beyond that to the higher dimensional guidance and to the sense of, a return to who you were before all of these cultural precepts were placed upon you. You had to make sense of the world when you first came here. There were all these blurry shapes and figures, and something weird happened, then something wet in your mouth, and then something came out of some body part, like you didn't know how to make sense of your senses. The journey of gaining a coherent light body is analogous to that, where sometimes you might be like, I feel like chills. Something is happening to your coherent light body. Or you might feel a phantom pain in some part of your body that's like, you're like whatever, my elbow just hurt me. But you look at your elbow like, well, there's not blood gushing out of my elbow. So clearly my physical elbow is fine. What is going on? I know I felt something. You have a coherent light body. You felt something in your light body. All right. So all of the paintings that I make here and the music that I make now too, it's from the senses that I've gained in my coherent light body. So be humble or like whatever, celebrate your level of development. Be an infant or a baby of consciousness. You've just been born. You have a coherent light body. You don't even know how to make things work yet. That's fine. Like here in this world, like we don't expect little tiny infants to drive a car. Like they are not coordinated yet. They're still trying to coordinate their arms and their legs. This is your mind. So you're still trying to coordinate your mind and your higher senses to be able to effectively not only navigate reality, but create reality. So cosmic citizenship is when you consciously create reality, because you're like, so like as an adult, you're like, yep, I can move my arms and legs. Everything does exactly what I want it to do. Sometimes you might trip over your shoelace or something like that, but mostly in general, your arms and legs do what you want them to do, as opposed, if you are well. And of course, if anybody is struggling or suffering and you're not well, then, clearly I pray for your healing. But mostly in adulthood, we're in control of our bodies, but little children aren't. Like they like when little children like they spill their juice, they get stuff on their shirt, they fall down and go go boom all the time. That's what it is to be a little child. So this is about reality creation. And of course, everything that I teach here is precursor and foundation to the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna, which is very much about the embodiment practice of reality creation and its divine co-creation, because it is you swimming within a much, much larger sea of possibilities, sea of probabilities, divine consciousness, divine intelligence, divine willpower, and then you, as a subset of all of that, harmonically make a little bit of noise, but I don't know if it comes out on the Zoom properly. That's harmony. They sound good together. Sounds good together with, sounds good together with, sounds good together with, sounds good together with. These are harmonically nested sound waves, and they sound good together because their shapes fit together properly. So your goal in doing flying rainbow lasagna dancing and becoming a more maturing and growing as a participant in reality is how to make you and your personal life shape and what you're emanating with your mind and with your telepathy fit in with the rest of the overarching patterns that are the patterns of divine intelligence and divine wisdom. That's you too, but just at a very, very different scale. And you're not the only aspect of self on this journey, because when you look around, and I always say, like, there's Rose, Trisha, Pedro, Mr. Grucci, Joanne, they're all doing it too. So it is not just you, it is many, many aspects of self. And that's what that drawing that I always share, that little sketch drawing, like there's one person, but then there are all these other people that are coming into that one person. They're all on the journey of self-realization. And that is also part of what guides or the boundaries and motivations of your thought structures, how you are looking at others, how you are thinking about the world and the world that you are creating. So rewind and recap and reemphasize. Becoming a galactic citizen, becoming a mature or growing into maturity adult in the world of higher dimensionality means you recognize you have a coherent light body, a limb of existence that exists beyond the physical plane. As an infant of consciousness, your limbs wave all around. You don't know what you're doing. You're just knocking it. You're not even knocking into things. You're just rolling around on your back. That's babies. Just put the baby in like a safe crib with padding around it so that it can just flail around and do what it does. All right. All right. There's nothing wrong with that. Then as babies grow, what happens? You start to be a little crawling, scooting toddler. Then you start to really explore the world, and you're not only just on your back, like you're kind of going around spaces, touching things. What do toddlers do? Like they touch things, they put things in their mouth, they knock things over, they make a mess, they fall down, they go boom. Like that is pretty much the level at which I am, and at which many people here embodied are. Again, like being in total love with yourself. Be like, okay, that's the level of, no, I will give myself more credit than that. I'm not just a toddler knocking things over and spilling my juice and Cheerios all over the place. No, I'm a virtuoso. But I laugh at myself because even adults can spill their cup of coffee when they're whatever trying to do too many things at once, or going up, walking, and whatever, you trip over your shoelace. You have a limb of existence that goes beyond the physical plane. And the journey of maturation is to become aware that you have that anatomy, learn how to process your senses from that anatomy, how to integrate that anatomy with your physicality structure here, and then how to effectively control that anatomy, which does not just only affect you, but really affects totality, meaning all consciousness everywhere. Because when I talk about this being Christ consciousness, it's not, some people have a distaste for those two words being placed together. It is a level of consciousness. It is consciousness. We're talking about the supernatural or miraculous nature of what is consciousness. I know every time I always want to just go like this, like even though I'm drinking water, it's like, what is consciousness? Let's talk. What is consciousness? Because it's undefinable. Like we could have a whole extremely long, interesting discussion sometime about what is the nature of consciousness itself. to me, it is a miracle or something supernatural or something beyond intellectual explanation. That it even exists is in amazement, and that we get to be a part of it and experience it is also another level of amazement. And then the capacity to be able to cultivate it into higher levels is also an amazing opportunity. So that is, consciousness is incredibly precious, just as time is incredibly precious. And these are also parts of some of the values that I exemplify and that I'm trying to teach here, in the sense of like valuing your physical presence, valuing your consciousness, valuing the opportunity to be here, flowing through time, and to have, as you flow through time, it refines your consciousness, is basically it. So you are here with being given great gifts and great opportunities. And the opportunity part of that is the opportunity to grow. So this maturation process of going from being like an infant and not really knowing how to move your body or knowing how to perceive your senses, and then moving through that, beginning to learn like how to control your body, beginning to understand how your body relates to your environment, and then in greater levels of growth and maturation and adulthood, being able to contribute. And in our world, like, you might become a teenager or even 20 years old before you're really able to contribute, which would be like, you know, having a job or something like that, or having a position of responsibility, I should say. So it takes a long time in terms of your consciousness and soul growth to really be able I said that too many times, to really be able to be capacitated to contribute. Like, it's totally acceptable to say, when you are still growing and learning, like, you need a lot of nourishment, sustenance and guidance that comes to you, again, from your master teacher, librarian part of the cosmos, and God, the divine librarian that tells you what to learn and in what order to learn and perceive things. Totally appropriate to have that amount of guidance and support as you're on your journey. That is good. That is very good. So all of the work that I do here in terms of like sharing things with words, that's like the most comfortable I am with taking these coherent light body perceptions and translating them into pictures, because that is pretty much how I perceive them, as pictures. But then I also do perceive them now as tones, because my ears woke up next. And this is just like in human development, that some people learn to crawl before other people learn to read. And some people are really good at picking up little tiny Cheerios or little tiny beads or something like that. And some people don't yet have their hands under their control. But everybody eventually learns how to both walk, talk, eat, and tie their shoes. With your coherent light body, you will learn all of your senses and all of your skills and everything that is part of the higher faculties. You'll learn everything that you can do with your higher senses, but not everybody learns it or achieves it at the same rate or in the same order. So for me, my eyes woke up, my ears woke up, my tactile senses were always there, but I didn't quite know how to make sense of them, and also had a lot of light body disruptions in the events that caused me to be a walk-in here. A lot of things had to be healed, not only in the physical body, but also in the light body and in the interactivity of the two. That's what I would say. Your neurology is like a bridge of bringing together your world of the light body and the coherence of pure thought into your physicality structure. So I had a lot of bridging and rewiring and flying rainbow lasagnaing to do in order to make those senses be orderly and effective. And someone also once asked me in this class, how many senses does your coherent light body have? So here in our physical body, we're used to 5 senses, but your coherent light body, it has like a sphere, like a giant circular spherical shell of senses all around you. So you don't just see with your physical eyes in front of you the way that we are used to as physicality, human embodiment beings. You see all around you. That means you don't just see this moment in time, you see every moment in time. And same thing with your feeling state. Like, you're not just going to feel, like, mostly we feel things with our, like, these are my feeling things, you know, mostly I don't feel things with my elbows, right? Because it's not a very sensitive area of the body. So mostly we feel things with our hands, and sometimes we feel things with our feet, but we don't mostly use like our elbow or our shoulder to feel things. But what do you use to feel things in the higher dimensional states and levels? So now let's get down to the sense of, there is a tendril of attention that comes from here. So I know I need to talk a lot because there's a partnership between these two things. So just like your heart and your lungs, Your lungs bring in oxygen, and then your heart is like, thanks for the oxygen, I'm going to spread that around the body and circulate it through the circulatory system. Your aperture here brings in light, which is data, information, awareness, consciousness, intelligence, higher intelligence, organizational principle. This crown over here tells you where to look, tells you where you're supposed to go. And I know you've got a question over here. Pedro asks, do you see only your current timeline or all possible timelines? In a pristine state, when I am untrammeled by technology, I see all possible timelines. This is what it is to be an adult, activated Christ, to be able to navigate the world in this way. That, again, because now we have all this 5G, a lot of crapola, and a lot of miasma, frequency limitations, and things like that, that make it even difficult for me as a very experienced seer to be able to see at all times. But what you're supposed to be able to do in the way that it was for us in the time known as ancient or concurrent Atlantis is you are supposed to be able to see all of the time roads stretching out in front of you. If you are standing here and there's like a fan or an array of all of these possibilities that stretch out from this moment, every decision you make at every moment is supposed to be able to be made with your eye fully open so that you can tell what are the ramifications, what will happen as a result of that. Like if I choose to whatever, pick up this here, if I choose to pick up this pen, what happens as a result? These are the repercussions that happen down this timeline here. If I choose to move my arm like this, what is the result? These are the repercussions that happen over here. So when most humans right now are flying blind, until you get your coherent light body up to speed, and until all of these limitations and impediments and inhibitions, inhibitory forces, one second, while I get my drink of water here, the caca poo poo crapola that's been around humanity and has been limiting the journey so much, until those things are cleared away, then it can be very, very difficult to navigate reality with full conscious presence. But that is what it is also to be a galactic citizen, that literally you're able to live in true free will because you see everything and are able to make informed choices. So truly living in freedom, which is one of the basic value system building blocks of me as Aurora in all levels of reality. Freedom to be able to actually choose. If you do not actually have sight or information, how can you choose? If you're not literate, how can you choose? If you're not literate about what is on the cereal boxes when you're in the grocery store, how can you choose? How can you say, I take full responsibility for buying this box of cereal, and then you open it up and you're like, Raisin Bran, that's my least favorite. You're like, I wanted the Fruity Cocoa Pops. You're looking at time possibilities and making choices about where you're going to go and what you're going to do and experience. It's essential to know what's in the box. What are you actually getting? That comes down to being literate. So being literate means that you have activated your third eye here and you're able to begin to read time itself. I want to talk about the tendril of attention, but let me talk about what is literacy, because it's so different than literacy of, again, learning CAT spells cat. It is direct perception beyond intellectual knowing. So when you are literate, you just know, and you just know in many ways of like it is not. So the intellectual questing becomes a moot point or a meaningless exercise that you do not ask questions like, well, why is this? Well, why is this? Well, why is this? It just is. You see it like when I look up at the sky right now. I'm looking at the sky is blue. I mean, I know little kids ask, why is the sky blue? But I'm just like, the sky is blue. Like there's no arguments or wiggle rooms. Like you perceive it. You simply perceive the truth. So when your eye of insight and you is activated and you're literate, you simply perceive the truth, and you perceive the truth about events, about ongoing events or potential events or things that people have experienced. You're seeing time. You simply see those events. And it is beyond intellectual, interpretive structures. You simply know the things that you know. Let me go more into this direct perception. I mean, there's okay. True telepathy is done on a bridge of love. It is not done on a bridge of technology as synthetic telepathy is done on. This is one of the things that I struggle with right now, and why it is so challenging for me to be telepathic with my family of light, to be completely connected to them as I have been in finer times here on Earth, and also why it might be difficult for you as infants of consciousness to be coming into your toddlerhood and childhood and young adulthood, because there is such a thing here as synthetic telepathy. Synthetic telepathy is not done on a bridge of love. It is done using a substrate or network of artificial impulses that are electrical, but also biochemical and frequency based, and that are part of an apparatus that has been perpetrated upon your planet right now. So to make a distinction, real telepathy is done on a bridge of love. That picture that I have of everyone clustered around one person's head, that's you, and you're in love with yourself. And these questions and issues of consent, like you're not invading your own mind, it's all done on a bridge of love. But if you are connecting with someone in any sense, when I say bridge of love, what that means is that there is a respectful, reciprocal rapport and sharing of energy between both of you. And I literally feel it. What does love feel like? In case this is it's like describing what, chocolate or something like that tastes like. Like if you have never actually tasted it, wow. But if you haven't, what it feels like is there's like a slight ache in my chest, like my high breastbone. And I get a little bit choked up here, like my voice gets a little bit soft. And sometimes I get a little bit of tears. Sometimes I get a lot of tears. It's like happy crying. Sometimes I just feel like my eyesight brightens up as opposed to like streaming with tears. But when I feel that real coherence of love and get mind impressions, then I know that that is real telepathy. Trisha says centering. Yeah, and Trisha, she's saying centering, kind of like getting in that alignment with the central core timeline. Natural, real, love-based telepathy is not just the sending of words of the English language. So these are two very, very different levels of both your neurology and the language centers in your brain mind, and also your soul communicative technology. Because if you're going to talk with yourself that might have lived in ancient China, clearly you don't speak the same language with yourself then. And if you're going to speak with an aspect of yourself that lives on, I'm just throwing planets out there, Jupiter, or in another star system, you don't even have a physical body or larynx or an apparatus for being able to make sounds or receive sounds. Like, let's say you want to talk with a rock shrimp here in this world, or a tree is maybe one of the best examples of intelligent but non-human life that is around you. Trees are so amazing, sophisticated, benevolent, loving, protective, just wild as an undomesticated, beautiful, divine presences that are all around us. And how do you speak to them? Because they don't speak the English language. And how about talking to a bee? Bees speak with pheromones. You can't make a smell language. You can't even envision it because you don't have the biological apparatus for it. Natural telepathy takes place on a bridge of love, and it takes place with abstract mind impulses. So if I wanted to talk to a bee, what I would do is I would say, here's an intellectual thought coming from the level of yellow. It's going to come up through the open clearinghouse of my heart, because my heart is open and I'm in love with that bee. I'm in love with that bee, because there was a bee on my windshield this morning. Then that intellectual impulse that is in the English language is going to go through my throat chakra, and it's going to be unclothed with words. Whatever my impulse said, if I was saying like, I love you to the bee, the I love you phonetic sound structure gets taken away from the impulse in that place. And only thing that is left in that level of refinement is the energy of what I'm trying to communicate to the bee, comes through my eye of insight, which is pure knowing, and then comes through my crown chakra and connects in telepathy to that bee that receives just an abstract impulse, like a ball of energy, that then comes into it through its interpretive structure, kind of like how a baton bangs a gong, like you have like a vibrating membrane. Here's the thought structure that's going to come, it's going to vibrate your membrane, and your membrane is whatever is your language. If it's pheromone based, or if it is auditory based, or if it is in the colors of a rock shrimp's eyes, then it comes in and that it stimulates your language membrane, and then percolates through to your conscious daily waking intellect, which both bees and rock shrimp also have. So key takeaways in natural telepathy: it's done on a bridge of love. That means I really love that bee, and that allows me to have a rapport and a sharing of true intelligence with that creature, because I'm affecting it and it's affecting me and we're affecting one another. You're on a bridge of telepathy. You're on a mind bridge. This is so, so, so different than the sense of synthetic telepathy, which is just calling someone up on the phone. Where's my phone? It's down there on the floor. Ring, ring. Hey, hi, everybody. This is Aurora. I'm calling you up to say hi. And it doesn't matter if I love the other person or if I really feel connected to them. And you can say all sorts of things in an unloving way. You could be like, yeah, I hate your face, get out of my life. You know, like what, you could be incredibly unkind or even cruel. And that is the nature of synthetic telepathy. So synthetic telepathy is really just the stimulation of that membrane that is language structure. Like, I zap you here, you hear the word cat. I zap you here, you hear the word dog. I zap you here, you hear the word whatever, you know, umbrella. And that none of that is about having those loving impulses that come in. So you can talk with the tree because you send the tree the loving impulse. And it's like, I just got this loving impulse from a human and interpreted it through my cellulose glucose structure, you know, in my, you know, my tree body. And so it allows for true connectivity with all consciousness. Again, this is not only non-denominational, this is non-anthropocentric. It means you are connecting with consciousness. Trees are conscious, bees are conscious, microbes are conscious. And you can connect with any of these levels of life and awareness through the tendril of your attention. So I always use this as my little tendril. The tendril of attention is something that touches, it reaches out kind of like a finger or an elephant's trunk from your third eye, which is your eye of time, and it is meant to be a sensory apparatus. So your attention is a big part of what you are learning to control in your maturation process and in becoming a galactic citizen. You're learning to control what you focus on with your attention. So I'm sure every single one of you probably remember sometime in grade school when the teacher was like class, like tapping on the board, like tap, 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 pay attention, like don't pay attention out the window over there, pay attention. That whole sense of like little kids, they're like, I'm looking over there, I'm looking over there. That's cool, because kids have a wonderful questing mind. But the human domestication process is pay attention to the teacher or the television or the computer screen. You know, all of it is preparing you to be a productive adult in the industrialized world. Your attention is literally anything that you're focusing your mind and your consciousness upon. So your attention sticks out like a tendril. It comes from the Greek word attenuos. Do you want me to write it out for you so that you can read it? Because a lot of people will benefit from reading this as opposed to me just saying it. Hold on a second, gonna write it out for you here. I know it makes my camera shake a little bit. So attenuos is the root and attention is what it is. And attenuos in Greek means to reach out towards. So whenever you're learning about something, your mind, your literal insight, not your human intellect over here, but your insight here is reaching out towards something. And when you reach out towards something like that, it's an act of willpower, it's an act of learning. And when I say like you have this as your library card, you can learn about anything by touching on something. Like if I wanted to know about the true nature of a toroidal structure, I could look at one with my third eye. I can touch on it, touch on this structure the way that you would feel and sense something, and I would learn from it by doing so. Guess what, everyone? That's exactly what I've done on my journey. That I started out with touching with my mind's tendril of attention on these toroidal chakra structures, and then made simple diagrams about them, then touched on more complex structures, learned more complex structures, and my paintings grew in complexity. Whatever you are touching on, you are ingesting small amounts of. Just like when you're smelling something with your nose, you're actually ingesting tiny amounts of molecules. So it's like, you know, if you smell doo-doos, you're like, ugh, like not only does it smell bad, but tiny amounts of doo-doos are going up your nose. And same thing if you smell a rose, you're ingesting a tiny amount of rose when you smell that in. Or some wonderful food. Like, you know, when you're like, if you smell fruit before you actually eat it, you're like, is this ripe? Like, is this melon ripe? You're eating a tiny amount of that melon before you actually eat it in your body. All of this, again, the smell for us biologically is meant to be a way of saying, don't eat the doo-doo, it does not smell good, and do eat the melon, it does smell good. We touch on thoughts, we touch on concepts with our mind, with our attention, with our questing tendril from up here. We touch on different concepts and we touch on different possibilities and times. This goes back to Pedro's question. When you touch on either a concept, you're able to tell whether it is nourishing, coherent, and brings you to longevity, towards ascension, or whether it brings you to the membrane of death, which would be something that you don't want to eat. And same thing with time structures. When I touch on this time structure, like here's a road, instead of looking on a map and be like, does that road take me where I want to go? What you do is you touch on that road of potentiality directly. I'm touching on that road. Do I want to go there? And if it says, yes, I want to go there, it feels and smells good, I'm going in the direction of love and longevity, and I'm being guided there by divine consciousness and divine intelligence and willpower, then I make those choices and go on that road. Like here's a small example. If you're like, what should I plant in my garden? Should I plant a broccoli garden? That let's send out my tendril of attention, because I'm going into microgreens. So I'm just thinking about like, do I want to get broccoli sprouts? Do I want to plant radish sprouts? Like I'm literally doing this. So I take my tendril of attention and I put it on the timeline where I get broccoli sprouts. And I see how it feels and how it tastes and senses and what the sensation is like over there. I'm like, yeah, that feels good. That looks like and feels like, from this perspective, a beneficial time road to be on. Gonna get the seeds, gonna go in that direction. How about something that doesn't seem appealing, that whatever, I'm trying to think of something that you would not want to plant in your garden. That's just an unhealthy vegetable or something that you don't want, but you can touch on that timeline. Well, let's use a disaster as an example, because I want to go into the example of anxiety of the uncontrolled mind. Touching on the reality where I'm growing broccoli sprouts, that sounds positive. That's a life direction I want to consciously align with. How about, do I want to touch on these timelines where you get hit by a Mack truck on the highway? I always use that as my example of sudden death. Don't want to go on those timelines. So this is the uncontrolled mind. When you are flailing as an infant, not only sometimes are you out of control and just learning about your body, but sometimes you touch in things that are dangerous. You don't actually want to be on those timelines. You don't actually want to step in poops. You don't actually want to die. But sometimes the mind goes towards, touches upon, and ingests concepts from undesirable futures. And sometimes it's not even within your control. Sometimes it is from the influence of something external and unwholesome. So hugely important to claim control and ownership over your own mind. This is part of galactic citizenship. This is part of coming into maturity. And this is part of what I was talking about, what I recorded 10 years ago versus what is going on now. Humanity was not being punished in terms of being sequestered or kept away from the larger mind creation community of collaborators in the cosmos. But there were many, many undesirable mind activities here that one would not wish to exacerbate. Your mind gets connected to a vibrating field that is the vibrating field of potential that is known as God or divine consciousness. And by putting your mind into that larger mind or field of potentiality, you create reality. And it's a very, very powerful position, and it requires great responsibility and great self-control, because you want to be creating positive realities, desirable realities, realities of coherence and longevity in moving forward, not to manifest realities of fear. So none of this is meant to be like, shame, shame, please. I never go into that at all. This is all true, like radical, loving compassion for the way that people have been. People have been very fearful because of the traumas that this whole entire planet and human and plant and animal structure endured in terms of what is known as the fall of consciousness, the fall of Atlantis, multiple non-consensual genetic modifications. People here and the human mind here has been very much in fear of like lack of resources. Like if you don't just eat sunlight, you're like, I'm going to need some solid food and liquids. Like I'm going to need something to sustain me. And then the fear of what if I don't have enough to sustain me? Or the fear of death, because death became a thing. And I talk about the time before death was invented. And or abstract fears, like fears of planetary destruction that emanate from the traumas that you've experienced in the past, because people tend to expect to re-encounter and continually re-experience the traumas that they've already experienced, because it leaves a huge impact. So you're like, wow, the planet got extremely catastrophically destroyed one time before. Maybe that's going to happen again. That's the fear of the eschaton. So there's fear of death is like your own miniature eschaton, and then the fear of like the apocalypse, the catastrophe, the end of the world, and all of these different human myths, because there's Ragnarok and the Kali Yuga and the Book of Revelation from Judeo-Christianity, that all of these things are an example of the fear of the destruction of the planet, and then also the sense of even an atheistic or agnostic person just fearing nuclear war or devastation that is made from human-created catastrophe. All of these things are mind potentials that we do not actually want to plant those seeds in the vibrating field of potentiality. And this is big because it's the planet and the biosphere, that one's own individual traumas and fears should not be put into action, should not be actualized into a larger reality structure that will then harm either the entire planet or cause repercussions that go forward, backwards, radiate, reverberate throughout all these different layers and levels of reality in terms of destructiveness. So again, huge love, forgiveness, and compassion on you if you've been traumatized and then have an expectation of re-traumatization, that it's like, no, don't think about those thoughts while you're here. And we can use that movie as an example, like in the world of a moment of pure potential, like don't think of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, don't think of your greatest fear. His greatest fear was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And then the giant Marshmallow Man comes. So yes, what are humans' fears? Humans are afraid of planetary destruction. Humans are afraid of their own individual destruction, and humans are afraid of a lot of things that have already happened to you, most especially this sense of non-consensual genetic modification or being taken away from your divine presence. All right, that's some of that stuff where you're like, hey, this divine presence stuff is pretty great, but how come I have to reconnect to it? How come I have this telepathy stuff is pretty great? How come I have to reconnect to it? How come I didn't have this all along? And the answer is because some bad things happened. And that is a very fair thing to recognize here. So for a long time, humanity was cut off from the larger civilization or connectivity, mind-connected level of consciousness that is hugely benevolent, hugely loving, and also hugely self-responsible and authentic and honest in terms of the realities that we are creating with our mind. And it's really necessary to do deep healing for yourself as an individual, for yourself as a culture, for yourself as a planet, to be able to get past those, I hate to say quarantine because it's not a valid quarantine, but the limitation factors that were placed on human consciousness, keeping you away from, because you are worthy, like they were keeping you away from these capacitations, but I want to affirm to you, you are worthy. You should be capacitated in this way, but you also should be healed. So 10 years later, after recording this original, teaching that I did, when I was talking about the planetary quarantine, yes, your quarantine or limitation factor is being lifted, and also there have been these inhibitory factors that are like, nice planetary ascension you got there. It would be a real shame if something happened to it, definitely trying to either get high on your stash or limit or inhibit the natural ascension process that's going on, because the ascension process is like a birth process, or it is like a profusion of light, where it's like, wow, if you can harness that, you can do all sorts of different things. So a lot of unhealthy consciousnesses are like, I'd love to co-opt your ascension that you've got going on there. And that is really the challenge that you're facing now. So even as the limitation factors from you being able to be telepathic with the rest of the cosmos and be a direct reality creator have been lifted, there have been the predators or exploiters that have wanted to come in and be like, let me take advantage of your light. And that means hacking or hopping on board without permission your experience of being a divine co-creator and making reality happen. Okay, I'll get to your question, Pedro, because it's so good. So just to comprehend and know and own the truth as I'm wrapping up this little section of what I'm talking about, that your gifts to co-create reality are amazing and amazingly valuable, that you've always been worthy of them, have been artificially kept from them, and that just as your inheritance is coming to you, there are many usurpers that would like to be like, let me usurp your inheritance and make you create some kind of a crap or diminished reality that benefits them, of course, And that is not necessarily something that you would have naturally done yourself. So all of this in terms of responsible reality creation and becoming a mature adult also has to do with claiming and safeguarding your creative capacitation so that you're creating from a loving space inside of you, from a healed space inside of you. And I would say encrypted is a good word, shielded, protected, empowered ownership state where you take full responsibility for the things that you're making, so that it's not, no one else is able to be like, oh yeah, like I did that and that to your recipe and changed it, because this is big stuff to create reality. So Pedro says, for someone who hasn't experienced telepathy, how do you prepare to do it? Because I don't think that those loud words I sometimes think I hear are not it. I will agree with you, Pedro. And again, thank you continually for being in my class over many years. Synthetic telepathy is just loud words. And sometimes people even have something that comes inside of them that is totally not their own character. They might even hear things that are violent thoughts that say, like, you know, like kill the dog or kill yourself or take drugs or any kind of thing like that, or just die. None of that is you. I want you to know that. That's really, really, really important. And please don't do, and nobody in this class, nobody's in the sound of my voice, please don't do the flawed or dismissive shadow work where you're just like, it's spiritual bypassing. It's like, it's all me, including the synthetic telepathy. I think it's hugely dangerous to do that, because there are a lot of hackers that are going on right now attempting to hack, hijack, hop on board your natural ascension process. And you can't claim them as you. There has to be a very clear distinction and boundary set at this level of the ego, where you say, I know who I am and I know who I'm not. And that thought that just came into my mind is not who I am. And these are challenges that I did not face 10 years ago, that these are really new challenges that have to do, again, with the artificial developments in networks that have been created in this planet for planetary suppression over the past 10 years. So please do not falsely claim these invader voices as your own, or their directives as your own. Please don't be violent towards yourself or others, or take drugs, or do any of the things that they tell you to do, because that's not really you talking to yourself. That's other stuff. It's not God talking to you either. So again, I can tell when something is real telepathy because I feel that feeling in my heart. And then I'm like, I will be in contact with that, because that gives me a love feeling. I get love feelings from trees all the time. I'm like, trees, let's talk. This is beautiful. Love feeling. I get artificial telepathy all the time. I'm like, get out, not listening, you know, shields up, not listening to any of that, because it has no coherent love. And so Pedro says, by prepare, I mean like the FRL dance where you put the Merkaba, then you sun gaze and encrypt your DNA and your FRL. Yes, so the journey towards becoming telepathic does involve creating healthy energetic boundaries. And it also involves being able to determine and distinguish the difference between heart-based true love telepathy and synthetic telepathy. And also, I must intellectually prepare you for what it is like when you are telepathic with others and also empathic, because I am empathic, meaning I connect on the level of pure insight. I also connect on these levels of emotions. You're gonna feel and sense and see a lot of stuff about a lot of other people that you're going to have a hugely, blazingly compassionate heart to deal with, in order not to go into depression or judgment or any of these lower down here. Lower does not mean worse, but it just is not the upper view of the information that you're receiving. You're gonna have to like maintain a really level, neutrality, strong foundation stance for unconditional love. And unconditional love, I always joke in this class, does not mean hug and kiss a demon. It is not the recontextualization and validation or justification of unjustifiable activities or actions or violence. Big. It doesn't mean everything's fine, do whatever you want. Like, no, not at all. But it does mean that when you are starting to activate these higher faculties, first of all, you have to read every page of a book before you kind of give your book report. So you have to see the totality of a person before you really know who and what that person is from the highest dimensional viewpoint, like what it is like to be my Aurora, my collective outside of time. Yes, we read everyone like a book. That's what it is to be literate. There's no lies. But let me just break for a moment from my intensity of sharing and do some little personal anecdotes. Like when I first came here as Aurora 21 years ago, one of the most challenging things for me to integrate with culturally is that I don't lie, and I didn't even know that lies exist. And this is very analogous to you in your own journey as a tiny new human going through your levels of early human development. The first time that somebody lied to you, where like it might have been mommy, daddy, a caregiver, where they said, yeah, you're going to get ice cream. Do this thing, clean up your room, then you'll get ice cream. And you're like, okay, I cleaned up my room. I'm ready for my ice cream. They're like, no, you're not going to get ice cream. Then you're like, that's not fair. And also you lied. And there was like a heartbreaking moment that everybody experienced. I experienced it in chronological adulthood, but it was the same analogous moment of recognizing like that person, their words did not match their heart. They did not match their action. They said they were gonna do or be a thing, and they weren't that thing. And I remember the first time that I felt that, and it's kind of crushing, because I come from a place where it's very pure and very pristine, and everybody lives as truth. You're the embodiment of truth. You just saw my back go up. And I know that you guys come from that place too. You just might have been here for many, many cycles of the karmic washing machine, and you just might not remember it so much. And I'm a reminder to be able to remind you, remember you of what the things that you already know deeply inside. You know that you come from a place of pure truth, where lies are not only they don't exist, but it's just ridiculous because everything is seen. It's like if I told you, like, I'm not wearing a blue shirt. You're like, Aurora, like, I can see you're wearing a blue shirt right there. You're like, no, I'm not wearing a blue shirt. Like that would be considered like immature or infantile or just ridiculous in some ways. But in this time place here, where not everybody has total vision, you can be fooled. You can be fooled by someone saying that they're going to do something or be something when they're really not that thing. And then there's disappointment that is very, very real and very crushing to recognize, like you're not in that beautiful heavenly divine community. You're in a different level of community. Sometimes people lie unintentionally, where they're like, you were supposed to get ice cream, but I checked the freezer and we're out. So we'll go to the store and get some later. That's a different type of, mom, you lied. But then there's a different type of like mean babysitter lie. That's like, no, I knew there was no ice cream and I knew that it was a lie and I did it anyway. Like I'm making a mean face. That's a different type of lie, and intentional deception. And that recognizing intentional deception is a necessary level of soul development, but it still has its own wounding or trauma to be like, wow, like you can't trust people. That is correct. But in the time of ancient Atlantis, you could trust people, because guess what? Everybody was activated here. That's like saying everybody lived in Christ, even though those words sound heavily religious here and have all sorts of connotations about worthiness. Everybody then had an activated Christ chakra. Everybody had an activated crown chakra. Everybody knew the truth of everybody. So like, as you're, imagine walking around your town, you're like, yep, I know the truth about all of those people. I know the truth about every single thing that they're thinking and doing and saying and feeling. That is what a telepathic society is. So a telepathic society requires total authenticity, total honesty, total self-honesty, total self-responsibility. And that is part of not only your human or whatever interactive interpersonal social dynamics, that is also part of reality creation. So you're in this world right here where it's like reality is largely out of your control and everything's being created rather haphazardly. And then people are saying and thinking stuff and nobody's taking responsibility for their mind. That I will also tell you that is one of the most difficult aspects of me being embedded in this society, because I've maintained my, for the large part, divine connection, telepathy, authenticity, sense of self-responsibility, even amidst a cultural paradigm where that is either not valued or impossible. So very, very difficult to stay sane and centered in that circumstance. But again, I come here in order to remind you and exemplify and build again that type of society where, like, yes, your words match your heart. Speak truthfully, take responsibility for who and what you are, and you are authentic. And what that does is brings you up to the level of being worthy of interacting. The cosmic dance party, like those things that at the nightclub you get the velvet rope, like the bouncer stands outside and he looks to see, like, Should you come inside? Yes, you. We'll open up the velvet rope for you and you may come inside. Although I don't want to make Galactic Society sound like so decadent or whatever, but it is a frequency portal that you must go through in order to be a part of that higher dimensional co-creative space. And it's intentional to be able to keep out fragmented and unhealed beings from bringing into existence more of fragmentation, trauma, and their lack of healing. So really, really important for you to be able to do that healing. But I also don't want you to think that everyone in heaven is like, no, like you're not dressed cool enough. I don't like your face or your shoes or whatever it is. No, you don't get to come into heaven. I don't want you to think that it's like that. It is way, way, way more about your purity of your heart and again, innocence and willingness to learn than it is about perceived perfection or beauty or something like that. So yeah, what are the parameters to be able to get up to that level? Do you have to be perfectly healed? No, you don't have to be perfectly healed, but you have to be willing to do the radical self-honesty, radical self-responsibility in order to get to those levels of divine perfection and healing. And what that means is, let's say a giant searchlight is upon you. You're being read like a book. Are you going to be like, okay, fine, but like, just don't read that part because I did something bad there. Just read anything else, just not that event. You have to be able to be like, yep, I'm everything, including that event. I did all of these things. And part of that is your journey of self-love and self-acceptance. Huge foundation of self-love and self-acceptance, because this is what this searchlight is. You use it to look at and understand your environment, and you use it to read other people, and you use it to read yourself, because it's all you, but you definitely read the book of you. So I want to definitely make sure that I stick with my notes here. Some of the important things are that you read the books of the cosmos in the correct order. You take your library card and you can get access any information as long as you have the gas in your car to make it go. So you have to have unconditional love tone. If you have 10 units of love, then you can read 10 units of insight. And that means that it's like you can buy 10 books, all right? But you can't buy 100 books if you don't have 100 units of love. You have to grow and get more love in order to be able to receive those books. And then you have to listen to the librarian. Pardon me. Have to listen to the librarian that tells you you want to read pages 12 through 36 of this book. And that will give you crucial information. Then you want to go over here and you want to read these books over here. And the order in which the cosmic information is presented is absolutely critical to your truthful understanding. The greatest level of vulnerability is if you just have the library card but no guidance as to what to read and in what order, because you can read all sorts of things that create a false impression of the world, even if they are truthful in their nature. And that is like a little bit of information can be used in a dangerous way. So you must receive a holistic viewpoint guided by, this is again, master teacher and divine presence, that those are they have the wisdom and the responsibility and are worthy to guide you on your journey of being able to comprehend the world that you are within. So like I am an articulated outer force, that everything about what I do in my teaching is to bring you to that non-articulated inner teacher. So watch my videos. They will tell you, develop your own inner telepathy, touch on pure consciousness, learn from the master teacher. That is then once you matriculate to that, that is what you should learn from. Again, this is also the dawning of this new era with the age of blah, blah, blah. My brain is not working. The end of the age of Pisces, Piscean age. That age has been roughly the past 2,000 years of human development, and it is very much focused on the external authority figure telling you what to do. And that's exemplified by this level of development here. When we reach the crown level of development up here, I have to bend down on my screen, over here, the crown level of development up here, You are guided by the inner librarian or your GPS system and your own library card, inner master teacher. And that means that it is not necessary to have an external teacher, a person on a video screen, or even an external book, because you have this questing tendril that can touch on anything, anywhere, anywhen. I want to learn about the woolly mammoth, and they don't exist anymore in my time place, but I want to know about them. What can I do? I can focus my tendril of attention, attenuate outward to the woolly mammoth and touch on it in another time place and learn from it and learn from its body characteristics, personality, and motivations, who it is and what it was. And you can learn the truth of reality. Like, you have to understand how powerful this is. And then also there have been misusers, misappropriators of this power that grew to be megalomaniacs because they hadn't yet connected to their crown that was giving them this information in the right order. So like, one of the things that you learn when you start to get your library card of the cosmos, see spot run, one of the first things that you learn is, I am God. You will read that and you will know that to be truthful about yourself. I speak it for me, you will speak it for each one of you, your own individuated perspectives. Then the next page in the simplified children's book is, and so is everybody else on this journey of self-actualization. Let's say that someone just read the first page of See Spot Run, I Am God, and then they never read the next piece, and then they just jumped off into War and Peace, going above their reading comprehension levels. You understand now what I'm talking about, how some information can be taken out of context and emphasized in a way that creates distortions, as opposed to in a purely truthful sense. So hugely, hugely important to be guided in this way. The violet chakra, which is up here at the crown, and the indigo chakra here, which is at the brow, have a beautiful interactive partnership that is not in conflict. Many human relationships have a conflict in their social dynamism. Who's more powerful? I'm more powerful. I'm going to fight against you. None of this is like that. It is your own anatomy, like your heart and your lungs working together, where your crown, your Christ chakra here, that is kind of like the housing within which the super sensitive instrument sensing needle of your crown is housed, like a compass, so that you can tell where is God. Because some of the time God is over here, but then some of the time God is over here. So it's never a conflict. It's not like, your crown is going to say, oh, God is over here, I want you to turn the eye of time this way. And the eye of time is like, no, I don't want to go that way. I don't want to have that for lunch. I want to go over here and have this for lunch instead, because everyone always fights about what they're going to have for lunch. Like, do you want to have hamburgers? No, I want to have pizza. Which way are we going? No, they agree completely. They are both divine instruments of consciousness, guiding you through the wonderful sea of waveforms and possibilities and abstract nature of time. There is no inner conflict. There's no competition for power. It's not like, well, I'm more powerful than you. I'm more powerful than you. Let's fight it out. All of those characteristics that I just talked about, those are things that happen at the level of duality, at the level of the brow chakra, at the level of the age of Pisces, at the level of the age of everything that humanity has been coming out of over the past 2,000 years. Thing one versus thing two, an endless competition of duality. And what we are moving into is unity consciousness. They are complementary perspectives, but they are not in competition. They are in collaboration. So the super, super sensitive needle that is at the top of your head that will tell you, like an antenna, you want to go over here. You want to look over here and do something over here. And your eye of time will focus your attention over there, and you will learn over there. But then in 2 seconds later, it'd be like, oh, no, now my crown is telling me I have to look over here. And then your eye of time will look over here, because when you're going through the time field, it's a non-linear journey. So again, we learn this linear thing at the level of the human operating system. First this, then this, then this. How you make brownies or cupcakes. First, you're going to mix the batter, then you put it in the oven, then you get the brownies and you eat them, all right? But this is a very different way of looking at things, where you're like, well, first I'm going to look at this information here, then I'm going to perceive this information here, then I'm going to perceive this information here, and it all makes a holistic, I want to say sense. It has a holistic coherence to it, What do I say about coherent waves of light? Coherent waves of light stick together, and what do good waffles do? They stick together. Coherence means things that make sense, and they are they're not in self-conflict, and they are self-supportive, in the sense of they have a logic or a structure that is an innate structure that does not conflict with itself. This whole thing against thing is a structure that fights with itself. And the crown and the brow do not fight within themselves, just as your heart and your lungs do not fight for supremacy. They work together. So the activation of the higher faculties is based on a foundation of unconditional love. It involves radical truth and honesty here at the level of the throat chakra, and then involves a beautiful collaborative partnership between your brow and your crown, or indigo and violet, and that all of that gets plugged into God or the divine presence or divine intelligence. And that when you activate those higher faculties, you, first of all, your personal boundaries are redefined, because you begin to recognize that. Let me just drink a little bit here. Your mind affects others, and your mind is affected by others. So I say, you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. That is another thing that I had to learn from being here, that from behaviorally interacting with people, I started to learn and comprehend, oh, these guys think that they're just thinking their own thoughts and that they're not affecting other people around them. Like people, I'm using as the analogy, if you have headphones on and you're singing and you don't know that other people can hear you, like everybody can hear you, you don't necessarily sound good, because people do all sorts of inappropriate things with their minds. Like some people mentally undress other people, totally not acceptable. That is an invasion and a violation of the other person. But a lot of people think it's okay, it's just happening in my mind. But your minds are all connected. But you have been artificially separated or partitioned by a lot of the language, culture, and ego structures that have been imposed upon you. These are fictions, not truths. So all of the separations that you're experiencing and overcoming in this level of maturation, maturity process, when you start to come to the level of unity consciousness, you're like, I wasn't separated from all of those people. That was a fictive, I want to say a fiction, but really a lie, a damaging, pernicious lie. Because in truth, you are connected to all of these other organisms. Although you maintain the sovereignty of your own individuality, that means I choose what happens in my own body. And also when I'm singing loud in front of other people, they can hear me. That's very big. So to clarify this, reaching into other people's minds and making them do and think stuff, not okay. Boundaries are good. These are the boundaries of your own mind. It's like saying your house, you set up your furniture in your way, you wear your shirt in your way. But also the way that you've set up your furniture and the way you're wearing your shirt and the things you're doing in your house emanates outward and affects others. I'm a literal musician. I play music in my house. I recognize that there are neighbors. If I have the windows open, the neighbors can hear me playing. Although I have my own life, I'm allowed to do what I want to do with my musical equipment and with my fingertips. I recognize that the stuff that I'm doing is affecting them. And what do I say all the time about the lessons that you learn while you are at the level of development of walking on the surface of the planet? The balancing of responsibility to self versus responsibility to community. You have your own life trajectory and responsibility to your own freedom and free activities. And you also recognize that you're in a context of other organisms, an ecosystem of thought and consciousness and energy and awareness, and also sometimes economy, and that you must be responsive to them. So it's not okay for my neighbors to be like, Aurora, never play music again. Your music disturbs me, or I just don't like the beat. Never play music again. No, because that would be an invasion and a limitation of me and what I need to do in my life. But it is okay for them to say, your music is too loud. Can you turn it down? Your music is something that you can't play at certain times of the day because we're trying to sleep. Yes, all of that is acceptable. So these are the lessons that we learn in balancing responsibility to self. I gotta play, I gotta be me, I gotta rock out, to responsibility to the rest of the neighborhood. And the answer is, where's my headphones? The answer is in large part headphone. Wait, grab them because I wear them all the time. The answer is in large part headphones, which means that I can make my music, and if I need to be loud in the middle of the night, I do it using my headphones. So what would be the analogy in a telepathic society. And I'll just be very brief on this. So where I come from in terms of the higher level galactic society, yes, you can read a person like a book, and no, you don't just go into a person's most inner, deepest, most intimate secrets without, let's say, consent or getting to know them or receiving permission. So and this has to do with Earth. You're on a planet that is learning to be telepathic. Your social dynamics must change. So you're not encapsulated within your own mind. Your mind touches on other people. How do you be polite? How do you touch on other people in a good way? How much can other people touch on you? These are the questions and boundaries that you are developing in this moment and level of your existence. So in a telepathic society, there are areas of your mind that are considered public, areas of your mind that are considered non-public, and areas of your mind that are considered sacrosanct or totally private. If I use my house as my example, on the front of my house, there's the sidewalk and the front yard, and that is considered to be like public space. Anybody can walk by on the sidewalk. Joggers jog by, bicyclists, everybody can go by there. So if I am on the sidewalk, then it means that I am like ready for public interaction. So if your hair isn't done and you're wearing your bathrobe, like don't go stand outside on the sidewalk because that's considered like a public place. How about my front door? To come inside of my house and inside of my front door, you have to knock. Can't just be like, hi, I'm a stranger, I'm barging in. That is not okay. Same thing with your mind. Telepathically, if you want to come inside of my mind, you have to be like, knock, knock, knock. I'd like to come inside. And I'm going to say, oh, where's your coherent love vibration? I'd love to feel you. And then also, what's your unique energy signature? It's kind of like looking on your caller ID and being like, who's calling? Who am I talking to? So you have, in order to talk to me, come in through my mind and in through the front door, you have to say, I'm a loving being, and here's who I am. Like, here's my unique individuated signature so that you know who I am. And then I also get to make a choice. Like sometimes I might be like, no, I'm busy, not into it. Or for whatever is your own particular reason, you don't have to allow entry to every single entity or aspect of self or being in the world. Not everybody has access to you. You get to make a choice at the front door. And if someone comes inside and you don't like them, you can be like, ho hum, I'm done. Time for you to go. Do you understand? Like, these are energy boundaries, and it's totally acceptable. And no one's going to go off in a huff and be like, do you know that she actually told me to go? Yes, that is right. I actually told them to get out and that I was done. It's totally fine. Not to get inside of the front door. And then when you come inside of my house, you find yourself in the living room, which is considered a public space within my house. That if you're in the living room, that everything that's there is considered to be things that I want to show to other people. So there might be paintings there or objet d'art or a nice couch that you can sit upon or something like that, but not like my private underwear or something like that. That is not what you put in the living room. All right. The living room is for guests. It is a private public space within your private home. And then how about my bedroom? My bedroom is getting to be a space of privacy and intimacy, because that is a space where I might have my private objects, like my underwear. And also it's a place where I do private things like dressing and undressing, and also require the privacy to be able to sleep and just be like, you close your bedroom door and it's just you. For me, it's just me and my dog. She's sleeping in the bedroom right now. And that's when you kind of like let your hair down and you're just you. And that's a private space within the privacy of your home. And then we have the bathroom. And the bathroom is really just for me. It's where you do your most private bodily functions. And it is where no one else should barge in. You lock the door and no one should be looking at you or watching you or perceiving you in any way. It's where you can do the most intimate things that you need to do without anybody looking at you or judging you. Same thing with the telepathic society. Some aspects of your mind are the public sidewalk. Anybody can read that about you. Anybody can interact with those levels of you. Anybody can know that stuff about you. Some of it requires an invitation, by invitation only, coming in through the front door. Even within that front door invitation doesn't mean that you can just go directly into my bathroom, rifle through my medicine cabinet, or, watch me in my intimate bodily processes. No, if you come inside of my front door, you still get to be in my living room where I might make you like a cup of tea or something like that. But that doesn't mean you're good to go into my bedroom and into my bathroom and everything like that. So in your mind, you still have the most secret, sacred, intimate places that are places where it's not because you're ashamed of something, but you might need to have privacy to do what you do. And shame versus privacy is a very huge distinction. So privacy means that there are things that you do that are not public, but you're not ashamed of them. And that includes bodily processes, sexual processes, basic hygiene, anything that you want to do, painting your toenails. You want to do it, you're not ashamed of it, but it's just not something that you do in public. You got it? Very, very different than shame, which is to say bad, wrong, naughty, something you shouldn't be doing at all. And this has to do with your mind. Are you allowed to have sexual thoughts? Yes. Are you allowed to have sexual feelings? Yes. Do they happen in the most intimate part of your mind? Yes. Should everybody know about them and have access to them? No. Only intimate invited partners, if that, and you are totally entitled to keep that as a, like I say, sacrosanct, from this root word, sacred, holy, special thoughts and feelings that you have inside of you that not everybody gets access to, not even if they knock on the front door of your telepathic house. And you're allowed to have your own personal diary in your mind also, where you might have to think your thoughts, where you think, so-and-so is really driving me crazy. Like they slurp their coffee or they drink their salad so loud. Their mouth chewing sounds are so loud. I cannot deal with them. And it makes me like homicidal, enraged. But if they hear that in your mind, you're like, you don't like that I'm chomping my salad right directly next to you and it makes you want to kill me? Like, you just got to understand, like, it is appropriate to have those feelings. Someone else may be driving you crazy, but they could still be a good person. And that if they found out that you thought those thoughts in your private personal diary, they don't get to be personally insulted. Like, how dare you think that my mouth chomping sounds are too loud? If this sounds like a very real story from my life, it is. A very good person, that was a housemate actually from many, many years ago. Good person, but chomped their salad rather loud. And I was thinking in my thoughts, like, that is just a lot of loud chomping. But it doesn't mean that I don't like that person. It just means that the sounds are driving me crazy. Radical love and self-forgiveness and compassion for yourself, and the balance of balancing self versus community. And once again, the answer to that situation was headphones, truly headphones. But in this case, in order for me not to listen to their emissions, to listen to their sound emissions. I know I like to keep it lighthearted here, but I'm sure that every single one of you has had examples of this, because being in a telepathic society that is a love-based society, does it mean that there's no friction? No. It means that sometimes there is friction. Sometimes somebody else is eating a very loud salad that you just can't deal with listening to their chomping. And that is okay. And that is not shallow, petty, wrong, naughty, any of those things. In radical love and self-compassion towards yourself, that is how that makes you feel. And then, of course, there are much larger trespasses than just the mere inconvenience of hearing someone else while they're doing something like eating their food or something like that. Sometimes there are people who have genuinely hurt you or whatever is going on. And then you have to be allowed to have your own private processing of how you really feel about your experiences with those people. Like, I'm a very good heart-centered, authentic, well-intentioned person. Sometimes I have personal conflicts with people, and sometimes I have hurt other people, they have hurt me, and I have to think about it. That happens in a telepathic society. You could think like, wow, like so-and-so did this to me and it really hurt my feelings. But you can also think like, wow, I did this to so-and-so, and I have to think like, was I hurting them? Was I mean? Was I justified? Emotional processing. And emotional processing is appropriate, and it's not something that you should be ashamed of. And it is analogous to like when you make poops on the toilet, because you are moving stuff through your emotional centers out of your body, and you don't want that stuff to be stuck inside of you. Let the emotional processing happen, but let it happen in privacy. Then when you are done with the doo-doos, then you can interact with that person and not have all sorts of perturbations in the relationship between you. And that is what a healthy telepathic society is about. Now take that and the interpersonal dynamics that are exemplified in that and enlarge it to the planetary scale. Can anybody come to the planet just because they're like, hi, can I come in your front door? No, you got to knock, knock, knock. You got to have a love signature. You got to have an energy signature. Who are you? What are you doing? Why do you want to be here? When you come to my planet, are you allowed to just go directly into the most intimate areas? No, there are some public areas and some things that will be shared and some things that will never be shared because they are sacrosanct. And also, should you expect going to another planet and be like, hi, I'm here from Earth. Can I go into your most sacred, sacrosanct sacrosanct, intimate levels of your mind? The answer is no, and it's usually presumptive for you to think so. So in the larger galactic telepathic society, when you start to recognize you are not swimming in your own kiddie pool, you are beginning to collaborate on reality creation, you have to learn how to even interact on a positive, healthy, mutually beneficial, reciprocal. A great deal of the love tone is reciprocity. I give to you, you give to me, but it's not a quid pro quo, but it is a working together, that all of that is cultivated. And trust. Let me just drink a little more here. I use my dog as an example, not that you guys are dogs, but dogs are beautiful, but because when I first adopted her, like she came to me with a lot of emotional baggage and she's a rescue, and it took a long time for her to trust me. Like I used to feed her, like give her food and she would kind of cower away, or I would go to pet her and she would kind of cower away. It took a little while for her to trust me. And that trust was built behaviorally, that I've lived with my dog for 5 years. So it's five years of wedded bliss, 5 years of her recognizing, like, I'm always going to be loving towards her. I'm never going to be mean. I'm never going to hit her. Whatever other humans did to her, that is different than me. I'm a different type of human. You got it? Took time to build the bridges of trust. That is what you have to do with all sorts of different levels of interactivity with people, organisms and organizations, groups of minds on this planet and elsewhere. You have to behaviorally exemplify that you are trustworthy. So my dog came here and I said, if you can trust me, I'm a good person. And she's like, dogs give you a skeptical face. They give you side eye. They're like, really? Are you sure? And then it takes a while behaviorally to prove it. And then even like after having her for a couple of years, when I would take out the broom or roll up a newspaper to swat a fly, she would still run away because trauma is deep. So I never was insulted when that happened. I was never like, don't you trust me? We've known each other for so long. You can't be that way. You have to be loving and compassionate and recognize that trauma leaves a very deep impression and that it takes time to build trust and that even there might still be greater levels of trust. So now this comes down to reestablishing your connection telepathically with other organisms on this planet, other beautiful, divine, loving beings that are here on this planet, and also elsewhere, that you have to build bridges of trust between yourself and the others who are awakening in their telepathic capacitation, and you have to build them behaviorally, and you have to abide by, so apologies for that distraction, there's a truck outside, abide by those boundaries in order to say I'm a trustworthy person, and then also your planetary structure and social dynamics and emotional dynamics connecting with otherworldly places, other time spaces, other dimensions, other physical planets, or levels of embodiment. All of that, you have to exemplify that you are trustworthy. They have to exemplify that they are trustworthy to you. And my dog has had to exemplify that she is trustworthy to me, that she wasn't going to like chew on things, be naughty, pee or poop where she's not allowed to, do something she knows she's not allowed to do. And so now I trust in her. Like I'm, whatever, she's in the other room, but I'm not worried that she's like chewing on an electrical cord or something like that. Like she has built bridges of trust with me, that I know that she is safe, that I can, just be focused on what I'm doing here. So enlarge and broaden this to the sense of galactic community and all the things that I'm talking about, moving beyond being, instead of quarantined, the proper word is sequestered. Like a jury is sequestered. You are taken away from connectivity for a very specific reason. You are now being re-engaged or reconnected to the other minds. It is not from a sense of unworthiness that you were taken away from them. You must learn to exert your proper energetic and telepathic boundaries, and also to begin to build these bridges of trust between yourself and these other aspects of self, or seemingly other or different species or organisms or levels of intelligence. And it takes time in order to do that. So that is the actually wonderful, expansive, I'm getting very excited. My brain is short-circuiting because I'm getting excited. That's actually the very expansive and wonderful moment of unfoldment and fulfillment that the ascension process is about. And it's also why you can comprehend, you can begin to extrapolate the levels of development of the planetary ascension here on Earth It's not just about your own personal triumph and achievement, although it is that. It radiates outward and begins to cause a huge positive cascade in the reconnection to all of these other levels and layers of being. I was just talking about you. Come on in, come on in. I was just talking about you. Someone always has to make an appearance in the videos. Oh, just talking about you. Beautiful. Thank you for giving us a little uplift moment. Can't see your face. Cheeky, how you doing? Good job, good job, good job, good job. Okay, thank you for the brief dog break. We love having a little dog break. I think that's actually good. Let me go into questions over here. I'm not done with my notes yet, though. But Pedro says, can the Pooties do any kind of reality creation, or do they rely on manipulating and deceiving us? Dun, dun, dun. I cheer, and you are a long-term participant in this class. But the Pooties do not have access to their own creative energy. They are literally the residue on your own creative, emotional chakra structure centers. They don't have gas in their car. They technically don't even have cars. They don't have bodies. That's why they're like, I'm a hijacker. I'm a hitchhiker. I'm not even a hitchhiker, where it's kind of consensual. Get inside if you want. I'm a hijacker. Like, I'm getting on board with a gun in case you don't want me to be here. I'm going to make myself come on board. They do not have access to creative life force energy. And that is absolutely their, they opine. They cry, they're unhappy and upset about it. It's because they didn't pass the audition and they smashed their guitars on stage, all right? So you're supposed to be here in your body, playing your divine music in conjunction with God. You're supposed to be guided by your GPS to see and understand and comprehend the world. And also, so I've been focusing on these senses as perceptive senses, but these are also creative senses. These are also the way that you use to be able to create reality structures from. And that is what the real maturity levels are about. So, you ingest light, you ingest ideas, you ingest intelligences and organizational structures, and then you also emit realities. You give birth to realities. Humans, you have to recognize that you're like gushing with creative energy, like you're making stuff happen all the time, like quantum observership and making stuff happen, and you're generating walls and you're interpreting things and you're making stuff happen. That is 100% you, and it should be 100% your responsibility. Like, yep, I generated that wall, or I generated that thing outside, or I generated that passing pedestrian, or that bicycle, or that situation out there. And also, you recognize from the teachings in that I share in this class that there have been these hijackers that have been on the membranes of death, literally destabilizing the chakra system as a way of trying to co-opt your creative energy. So they themselves are consciousness residues of, I want to say, failed lifetimes, equations that are inherently flawed, that do not add up to eternal life. And they have been like the peanut gallery, trying to inhibit or draw life force away from you in your journey of self-remembrance, of God's self, and of achieving your eternal life and your infinity pathway. And it's totally not allowed. So definitely not acceptable in terms of the structure of reality. And also, you've been sequestered because this has been a real ongoing issue. That you don't want to be like, here's the keys to the car, but you happen to have like these horrible, I want to say demonic possessors, unsafe hijackers that are going to try to hijack your vehicle and bring you in a direction that is not acceptable. And, there's your own particular life that we don't want a hijacker to drive you over a cliff. That would be like suicide, self-destruction, drugs, any of these things, or just whatever, eating a diet entirely of donuts that would kill you. But we also don't want these hijackers to destroy the planet. Like, let's say, like, nice planet you got there. It'd be real sad if I pressed the big red button and exploded it through nuclear war. Yeah, any of those things. Negative thought forms that would be able to influence human behavior to the point that it could somehow destabilize the entirety of the planet or destabilize the fabric of reality. Those are all the things that we really don't want to have happening. So it has been really the spiritual battle or endurance sport of your life. Endurance, yes. Sport, no, because it has kind of a capricious, arbitrary sense to it. Endurance activity of your life, of running this spiritual marathon, to become free of those hijackers. To make certain that you are encrypted or that your creative generative process is safeguarded in a way that no one else can take your creative energy and make caca poo poo with it. Yeah, to use more concise language to diminish it, distort it, dilute it, or misappropriate it. No misappropriation of your beautiful, creative, divine energy. And a lot of that creative, divine energy is sexual, and not necessarily sexual in the sense of having a partnership with another person, even though here we have male, female, biological procreation, which involves attraction and partnership and social dynamics. But I'm really talking about creativity, sexuality, and the capacity to think new thoughts. So just to be very, very clear, your body makes parent and daughter cells, you reproduce your own cells. You also are in a partnership with non-embodied intelligence, thought beings that are like, hi, I would like to come and live and gestate inside of you, like an idea for a sculpture or an apparatus. That's a thought that literally is like, hi, I want to be born. Come inside of you, and you are born through playing on the piano or through building in the workshop. That these are ways that we give birth to things, not necessarily out of a physical womb as a mother's womb, but both genders give birth in this world to the matter that we are creating with our co-creative observership, and to the generative forces of our body, and to the idea, concept structures that we make and create, especially if you're an artist, musician, creator, inventor, or speaker, or poet, or something like that. And also in terms of social dynamics, like if you put together a party, a dinner party, you're creating something, you're creating a social dynamic, or any kind of thing that involves organization that involves groups of people. If you're a leader, you are creating using these capacitations. And so the energy needs to be used in a responsible way. So one of the ongoing themes from this presentation here today is radical personal self-responsibility as a prerequisite for gaining access to these higher faculties, which involve direct reality creation. And sometimes it is direct reality creation. Sometimes it is a transformation of a pre-existing circumstance. Sometimes it is an augmentation of a pre-existing circumstance. So total reality creation would be blank canvas, paint whatever you want. Transformation would be, here's a picture of a person, but their face is all out of order. I'm going to fix the eyes, nose, and mouth. I'm going to make it look better. And then augmentation would be, here's a painting, the face is already looking great, but I'm going to put a bowl of fruit over there. That's like my contribution to making things better. And all of these things require a huge amount of self-responsibility and personal self-development and cultivation. So really, in the most non-judgmental way, you've been sequestered here as a part of your learning process, learning and personal growth. And learning and personal growth is totally awesome and great and something to be celebrated. So instead of you feeling like that you're a criminal here, like in a prison world, being kept away, like you're a dangerous criminal, like making like, I'm trying to make a whatever a posture kind of like that, like I'm a dangerous criminal. My face just doesn't work that way. And you're stuck in a prison because otherwise you would offend galactic society, where I clutch my pearls like, oh, I dropped my opera glasses. They must be kept in the home for the criminally inept. Of course, I'm mocking all of this in case you don't have sarcasm meters. No, none of that is what you've been experiencing. So I reaffirm and reassert your worthiness. You haven't been put on earth because you're a criminal or you're unworthy or you are worthy of punishment. Again, that's mostly the aspects of religious doctrine that I am critical of, the sense of defining you as a sinner and defining you in your diminished state as being justifying it or having it be worthy. It was all unjust. It was all unfair. Like as you gain your higher faculties, you'll see the truth of all of this. It's the best thing in the world. All of these teachings that I give to you, and I'm so gratified and happy to give it to you, to be a guide and a teacher and a sharer and an example in all of this. You'll have your own insight. And you'll be like, that's just like that painting that Aurora painted. And I'll be like, yup, you got it. It's like I walked up a mountain and I looked and I saw what everything looked like. And I remembered it, and then I got my painting out and I painted it, and then I showed you guys a painting. I'm like, this is what it looks like from the top of that mountain. And your guys are like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go up that mountain. And then you go up that mountain, you're like, this landscape looks exactly like the painting Aurora painted. That is totally my job joy in life. So all these things that I'm describing to you, you will get to these higher vista mountain peak perspectives. And then you'll be like, I remember that that was described to me. I remember Aurora or perhaps someone else told me about this, and now I'm seeing it for myself. So these are confirmations. And then what you really recognize is then you are guided by your own inner master teacher that continues you on your own journey. So all these other things have been like encouragements and signposts and things to kind of get you going on the way. And then as you become activated and mature in your own growth process, then you receive all of that information and guidance directly into you. This is the beginning of the next age. Upward from the age of Pisces is the age of Aquarius. I am not necessarily part of astrology, and I know I just said the magical catchphrase, which you can burst into the song if you want to, Age of Aquarius, because we're getting a little silly. It's been 2 hours and going on this class. But the age of Aquarius is exemplified by radical personal responsibility, as opposed to an external authority figure, such as the Pope or Jesus or mom or dad or a teacher telling you what to do, and you follow those commandments and then you are safe and good. It has to do with you following your own inner guidance, inner teacher, and heart-centered behavioral substrate. You do what you need to do inside because something inside of it tells you what you need to do. And it's not because it's written in a book. And many of these things, there's not a way to even give a recipe for it in a book. Like in music, what is the recipe for genius? Like if you're going to do an improv, be like first play an A flat, then play a B flat, then you'll be a genius. Like it doesn't happen like that. What happens is you feel it inside of yourself. Like you're playing a song, and you're like, time for a B flat. Bam, and you do it, and it sounds great, because that is what genius is. And genius literally comes from meaning divine architecture is working and acting through you in the linguistic sense. So there is not a recipe or an externalized set of parameters to make you a divinely connected co-creative genius. What there is personal cultivation, radical self-responsibility and honesty, and then a embodiment of a value system. And the value system would be considered the substrate of cosmic law. Things like what you send out comes back to you. And these are recognition. Like when I say those words, that is the word, like the word equation of a very clear molecular reaction that is going on, that is non-arbitrary and non-anthropocentric, that has to do with energy structures of the cosmos. So you begin to be guided completely by the value system that is exemplified by cosmic law, and you do so because it's truthful and you're in unity consciousness, because you recognize that those are the laws. So those are the laws that guide you in terms of recognizing that you're all of these different levels of consciousness. You're everything coming to know itself. And so you want to be respectful of yourself in all of these different levels of being. That's why freedom is a big part of cosmic law, because you're like, you need to be free to do what you want to do there, and then take the responsibility and then take the consequences of it and learn from it, because you know that's what you did and that's part of how you became the person that you are now. But then also you are not required, and it is not desired for you to present yourself so that someone else who's not yet at the level of unity consciousness can learn their life lessons all over you. That's big. So as you are achieving unity consciousness, when you begin to really activate these higher senses up here and the recognition that you are everything, it doesn't mean that it's like, yep, like whatever, when in basketball, a free throw, or, soccer, when you just get like to try and make a goal, it's It's not a free throw. You don't just like sit there and be like, yeah, do whatever you want to me, unity consciousness. No, you are not required to present yourself for abuse from other aspects of yourself that don't have their stuff together yet. You got it? In fact, quite the opposite. As a maturing galactic citizen and individual with your own higher faculties being activated, if you can see the array of futures that are happening, and you're like, yep, there's a crazy guy and he's running at me with a machete, you do not have to present yourself for chopping. That's literally the antithesis of what is supposed to happen when you have your inner eye activated and you can see the future. You're like, oh, I can avoid dismemberment. Hooray! You can avoid dismemberment at the hands of those who are still struggling with violence and psychopathology, meaning mind disease. That you can protect yourself from the mind diseased beings that are in existence that require an enormous amount of healing. So please do not present yourself for decapitation from the mind diseased. Use your inner capacity and your inner guidance to be guided away from those experiences and towards the experiences of coherence and longevity and divine union, where you are in love and you are loved, and it's a reciprocal regeneration, because truly your continuation is desired, not your destruction. That's very big. So yeah, I want to make certain that that is it. So I'm open to any questions in the chats over here, and I'm also just going to make sure that I'm going through all of my notes and that I'm getting everything correct. So you're just starting as an infant of consciousness to learn. You have a tendril of attention, you're learning what it is to be telepathic, and you're just starting to get to the level of like crawling, scooting, toddlering around, where that's when little tiny children get into lots of dangerous difficulties and make a lot of messes. And so you have to do that definitely protected and guided and well parented well by the older generations that have already been through those levels of development. And that is also part of what, when I talk about doing like a Merkaba, when you're going to do the flying rainbow lasagna, going to do rough sketches of reality. You're going to start to think, what would reality look like if I started to shape it like this? Like, what would reality look like if I wanted to make some broccoli sprouts? And I start to think, well, what if I put my shelves over there? No, it's not going to work over there because the dog is going to knock it over. Erase that. Well, what if I put the shelves over there instead? That sounds like a better idea. So I didn't destroy the fabric of the cosmos by considering where I was going to put my shelves. All right. I did a rough sketch with my mind, questing with my attention. And I said, what would that look like over there? Then I'm like, no, it's not going to work. Erase that away. That is literally appropriate for each one of us to be doing that in their lives. So anything that you are thinking of doing, any project that you're thinking of doing, don't be so afraid of playing a wrong note that you don't even dive in like you should think about it. Don't be afraid of thinking the wrong thought with your mind. You can think about it like in pencil, in charcoal, and just do a sketch. Like, what would that look like? And then if it's not right, easy to erase it. And you can even envision, like if you're sending out a tendril and energy and touching on a reality and literally feeding that reality with your mind. If it's not quite right, kind of imagine yourself like sucking that energy back in. Like, nope, I take my energy away from there. Shelves do not go over there. The shelves are going to go over here. And then I'm going to re-emit my energy into where the shelves should actually go. And that's totally appropriate. And that's appropriate to do also. I was talking about anxiety and depression to a lesser extent as being the end result of psychopathology. Don't think I'm calling you a psychopath just because you have anxiety, but mind disease being exemplified in the behavior of your tendril of attention when you touch on realities that you don't want, like the reality of nuclear war. There are peripheral realities where our planet and the biosphere is destroyed through nuclear war, but you can touch on them lightly. Like, oh yeah, that was where there was a nuclear war over there. I'm so happy that we didn't experience that. I now am going to draw my energy back from that reality structure and refocus on this reality structure where we don't have a planetary catastrophe. Got it? Because I was talking about that earlier in this class. You've experienced trauma, you've experienced planetary catastrophe. You don't want to re-emit that reality. So you start to touch on things, and if you feel it, you're like, that might seem familiar. I might feel anxious about that or fearful, because I've had bad stuff happen to me, but I draw my energy back from that reality and I focus on this reality. My little dog who's down in her dog bed here. She used to get abused and beaten in a bad household, but now she's in a good household. She doesn't have to put her mind on the peripheral realities where someone is doing something bad to her. She can draw in all of that fearful anxiety energy and redeploy it onto the belief system that I'm in a different world and I'm on a different timeline now, and somebody awesome is my owner who buys me dog bones all the time. That's me. You got it? I want you guys to use that as a template for your own life and your own planetary trauma and moving out of catastrophe. Yes, you had horrible things happen to you, had horrible things happen to your planet. Don't have to continually re-emit them. You can recognize that you're in a different context now with different levels of connectivity and care, not ownership, because that's got negative connotations, but different levels of connectivity and care and parenting and influence by those who care about you from older, larger, more expansive generation. The words don't really fit with who they are, but coherent light family that loves you profoundly, that is now truly loving and protecting you, and that you can draw your energy of anxiety and fearfulness away from the realities that you don't want, like nuclear war, getting hit by a Mack truck, and place them on the realities that you do want, where you figure out where you're going to put those shelves and actually get those broccoli sprouts going and see what the adventure of, building this little type of garden is all about. You got it? That is what you're supposed to be doing, creating reality with your mind. So summation and then questions and comments and things like that. Oh, wait, so great. First I want to read from this because this is emphasized in my notes. In order to become a fully fledged galactic citizen in hyperspace, the place beyond time and space, the realm of pure time and energy, where what you are thinking and emanating from your mind is going to be instantaneously created, you learn to consciously control the attention and the limb of the true creator's mind. Got it? So I know when I talk about the word creator, it has a biblical connotation, creator and creationism, but there is a creator, God, divine presence that is continually creating, not just like one initial big bang, kapow, and now you're in that creation, but continually creating. Like I made this gushing motion for you, like you're continually creating and creating and creating all the time. Like creations are jumping out of your ears all the time. And that it is learning to control that creative capacity. So again, Pedro alluded to the Pooties. The Pooties are like, yeah, look at these humans, like they got creativity jumping out of their ears, like let's hijack some of that. Totally not okay. What the benevolent, positive organizational principles and coherent light family are doing is saying, yep, there's a crop of humans or aspirants that have tons of creative energy jumping out of their minds. Let's help them like the way that a parent helps a child, make sure that they can explore their environment and learn about their powers and come to maturity in a safe environment, so that you're not like with sharp knives and glass as a little baby. Like you're supposed to be able to crawl around and make sure that anything that you put in your mouth is something you actually can put in your mouth. Give them safe toys to play with, even though those words don't really tell the truth of what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean. Safeguard your environment, baby proof. Safeguard your environment so that you can crawl around and explore and learn things in a safe way. And that is part of what I teach when I do my Flying with Lasagna dance, which is again a sacred dance. That first thing I do with everyone is I put up a Merkaba and I say, this is just like we're doing time acrobatics, and it's like you're at the tumbling gym or the acrobatics, acro yoga gym, and they've got puffy mats. And you can see I have a puffy mat on the floor here. That's so that you're safe. You can tumble and play and explore the boundaries of your body in a safe way without falling from a height of 20 feet and being broken and destroyed. So that's what this is all about, learning how to maneuver reality, learning how to create reality, learning how to change and transform reality in a responsible way, and then taking joyful responsibility for the things that you made. So that those I dance things into being, or I dance into those niches or superstructures, and I'm like, wow, look at this thing that I danced my way into, and then I take responsibility for it. And that is really joyful and joyous and wonderful. This is the complete opposite of strict determinism, which is to say some larger creator God or larger author of reality determines my fate. I have nothing to do with it, like hands off, shrug. I have nothing to do with it. Someone else is doing all of this. that is a lower level of personal maturity and responsibility. And you can tell from that. That's like, you're like, don't ask me, like, not my job. I just work here. And my shoulders go down and everything goes like this, right? As opposed to taking responsibility for your co-creative role in reality. And you're like, wow, there's stuff out there that I don't like what's going on out there. I am a part of creating it. And I didn't create the whole entire thing, but I must be responsive to it. That's what being a responsible, responsive galactic citizen is all about. I'm looking at the time because I also want to do my sun gazing today. Northern Hemisphere people, do your sun gazing. You need sun and take vitamin D. Okay. Questions over here. Trisha says, one way of divine connection is when we all meet in the truth, being here, all of us is one. Beautifully said. Let me read that again. Yeah, truthfulness is a part of that 0th dimension and culminative moment. And it is truthfulness. Throat chakra is also a big part of authentic relationship and any level of these more advanced civilizations that we want to reconnect with. Pedro says, I've been thinking of ways to send putis to entropy with unconditional love light and true and love tone. Maybe I can mix that with a Merkaba. Absolutely. So the Merkaba, as you're practicing in the gym, acrobatic tumbling gym of reality, is to say, have these intentions. Like, Pedro, my hat is off to you because you have positive intentions. You want to say, how can I reduce suffering in the world by doing something with these fragmentary thought forms that we know as the putis, the stuff that's stuck on the membrane of time. What do you do with it? Do you say bad, wrong, naughty? Do you send it to hell? It's already in hell. What do you do with it? Should it suffer endlessly? How do we send it to entropy? Entropy being like the non-suffering resting state. And putting a Merkaba around those intentions means that you have an intention, like, I want to reduce suffering, I want to do something with these putis, and I want to live in greater freedom. And then there's also in the Merkaba always that sense of the chef's choice, which is where you're saying, I want, this from the restaurant, but the chef says, I know what is freshest in the kitchen and I want to make you this instead. And it's not necessarily saying that you will get the thing that you wanted. It's just like saying you might even get something that is better or nourishing on a different level. And so, yes, you will find the ways to be able to be in peace and freedom and to have these fragmented suffering levels of consciousness in a resting entropy state. But it might end up looking different or being a different journey than what you thought. So putting the Merkaba around the entire effort is positive to do. And then also the big thing to begin doing in personal responsibility, energy boundaries. So you're learning self versus community. Your DNA and your body is your personal level of sovereignty, and it's totally appropriate to choose who and what is living inside of you. I told you, if someone does or doesn't knock on your front door, you are free at any time to say, I'm tired, like it's pajama time for me, you need to go, or whatever, for whatever reason, go, I'm done. And it's fair for you to do that with the putis. It's fair for you to say, although you've been a genetic invader or a hijacker or an addiction or whatever it is in my family line for a very long amount of time, I am kicking you out and you don't belong here. You don't belong in my body, you don't belong in my DNA, you don't belong in my heritage, you don't belong in my mind, get out now. Totally appropriate for you to exert those boundaries, and appropriate for you to exert those boundaries culturally. If you say, hey, like, I live here on this planet, I live here in this world, you're not allowed to be a planetary invader, because I don't want you guys to be like, hey, don't ask me, like, I just work here. No, you don't just work here. This is your planet. You love it. You love it, and you have to defend it with everything you've got. So if there's things that are here that aren't supposed to be here, you have to be like, there's a thing here that is not supposed to be here, and it is part of our collective duty to disinvite it. That's a better way of saying it. Like, I specifically disinvite this entity or organization or civilization or whatever group of beings. You are specifically disinvited, off you go. And that is appropriate to do that. So a lot of this work is, again, balancing your individual sovereignty and then balancing the planetary sovereignty, because believe me, the planet wants to get rid of pathogens. And then balancing out social dynamics of who's who, and is it just majority rule? If 99% of humans want to have evil invaders, should you have evil invaders here? No, not okay. Totally not okay. It's like if you lived with a roommate, that was like your roommate's going to open the door and let in like whatever marauding barbarians, and to be like, well, the roommate does have their name on the lease. Technically, they should be able to let in the marauding barbarians. No, no, that's not actually part of the roommate agreement, that I can let you may let in on Thursdays and alternate Fridays as many marauding barbarians as you want. No, that's not part of the agreement. So, because there might be some very extremely troubled humans that would be like, yes, let's let in marauding barbarians to invade our planet. The answer is no, you're not allowed to do that. It's something that affects the entire planet, something that affects me, it's something that I do not agree with, and it's not part of the roommate agreement. If I sound like Sheldon from that show, there's a reason. In that show, he's got like a roommate agreement, a binder this thick of what the roommates have to agree to. Joanne says, I would like to thank you again for all of your love and wisdom that you bring to us all freely with much compassion. You are so welcome, Joanne. I'm so happy to do it. Thank you. You're always so gracious. Thank you for that. She says, I'm super grateful for all of my learning because I do see how I now have compassion for others that have been through traumatic events. Thank you for that. And I'm so pleased and gratified when I hear that, because that is literally a huge part of what this healing is. Like when we look at the putis, or what are colloquially known as demons, or the unhealed or fragmentary fragments and entities, although they might cause an enormous amount of suffering and be very unpleasant to be around, what is at the root of them and their existence is trauma. And the things that I've learned about trauma and what it is and how it affects people, how it affects consciousness and twists and distorts consciousness, and what is needed in terms of healing and laying that trauma to rest is compassion is like a huge tool, effective item. I don't want to call it whatever. So it's not a violence war. It is a spiritual development, and your compassion is blazingly efficient at being able to resolve these traumas that are essentially unresolved emotional difficulties, unresolved emotional perturbations in the larger time field. And basically, when you get to these really higher levels, you realize all time is you. Every single photon and particle and wave of light is you. You are the singularity in all of these different places. You are God in all of these different places. And as it is all you, you are responsible for all of it and responsive to all of it. And that even includes the unrestful dead or the unhealed aspects of self or consciousness residues that are troublesome. Pedro says, there is a game where you tell a story and the other players create stories to stop you, and you have to create a way out. I think it could help to exercise our imagination and reality creation. I think it's called Baron Munchausen. That sounds like a really fun game and sounds like something that would be great for the Discord chat. So for anyone who's, a student here and a good person in the Patreon and FRL community, I share the Discord links so that people can go in there and just socialize and be a part of it. So yeah, if anybody doesn't have that link, reach out to me. And then Pedro, if you're not in there, Pedro, you should start it for us. You've incepted a lot of great stuff for us in this class, so start that game for us. Ines says, yes, Pedro, we have to create our own realities, new timelines, by changing our, scroll back, imagination about the now and near future. The quantum field's oscillation very intensely, now resulting in quicker results. Isn't this encouraging? So encouraging. Truly, truly, truly. It will not take us 10 years to get to the next level as we're like at base camp and then moving up to the summit. Not going to take 10 years at all. All of this manifestation happens very, very quickly. And that's in terms of changes in your body health, changes in your life, changes in your capacitation, changes in social dynamism, changes in economic dynamics in this world. All of it, I want everyone to know, although you might have lingering trauma of a time when everything was destroyed in one day, like in one day, mountains crashing down, or in one day, floods coming through, I want you to envision what the opposite would be like. The antithesis would be in one day, civilizations being built, even though they say Rome wasn't built in a day. In one day, an enormous, complex, positive architecture coming forward. In one day, the healing and rectification of everything in your life and in the lives of all organisms here. Because believe me, your life and redwood trees and dolphins and all of these beautiful insects are all connected. You're not discretely partitioned from them and their journeys at all. They're absolutely up. The butterfly that's flying past you while you're living in the 5G world is also being affected by the 5G frequencies. You're all being affected by this. So the healing that happens can be an instantaneous worldwide healing, which I think it's so amazing to think about that. It's the antithesis to putting your mind and your attention on the timelines where everything is destroyed in a day. Put your mind and your attention on the timelines where everything is created in a day. In one day. Can you imagine that? In one day, like all the cars and parking lots and everything that is artificial and pollution going away, and to return to the pristine natural environment, and your bodies being returned to a complete state of total healing and just whatever, like, like I want to say, like, tear off your clothes and go outside and be completely one with nature. Trish says, Aurora, don't they go to sleep at entropy when we stay tuned into the center and not hitting the membrane Putis feeding frequencies? Yes, one of the ways that you can help Putis to go to entropy is not to feed them. So you stay in your central core timeline and you do not put your energy to the peripheries, and you don't allow them to take your energy and put it into peripheries. And also some of these technological challenges make it a bit difficult to do that. So be in radical self-love if you're not able to stay completely focused. If you're like, oh no, like Pooties fed on me, like it's different now than when I recorded these lessons 10 years ago. Please do your best and know that you are worthy, and know that you are loved, and know that you actually are in a safe, parented area where you are being brought to your greatness in a safe way, so that you're going to manifest the best realities. Pedro says, yes, Ines, it's very encouraging. And Ines says, did anybody become aware of the recent cosmic event where the NASA could not understand why on the pictures where two Earths seem like two suns, the pictures were published? I did not see that. Ines says, Aurora, you said it before, there's another timeline. I didn't see the pictures of overlapping Earths, but that sounds really interesting. There is another timeline. There are many concurrent timelines, and it is the real, this is what I'm going to end on. The real galactic responsibility is recognizing there are millions of different stories that you can be a part of, and it is your choice about what story you are a part of. So in your body and your health of your body, you definitely get to choose what story you are a part of in terms of your metabolism, disease, decrepitude, longevity. You choose that story. And then on a larger sense, what you're aligning with in terms of human dynamics, things that involve other people and other organisms, you're still choosing what timelines you align with. And then even in a galactic sense, like the sense of pure light, the star field, all the way up to that scale, you are also still choosing what level of reality or what version of reality you are aligning with, because there are fragmented consciousnesses that need to be healed even at that level. So if you keep on making these choices and being responsible, you end up in those levels of reality. And there's no judgment, but some people end up in levels of reality that are about destruction because they've made those choices or aligned their thoughts with those levels of reality. I'm not judging them or saying bad, wrong, naughty, you, the worst things to hear. You deserve it, deserve it, deserve it. No, they don't deserve it. But in some ways they have aligned with it or co-created it, and that's what they're experiencing. And then also in true love, you accept that they need to experience that in order to come to the fullness of their being and to come to recognize their own greatness. So I knew that that would happen. Someone is coming home. Hold on. Sorry for that brief talkiness from my dog who's telling me someone is coming home, and also it is time for me to go sun gazing. And so I am going to wrap it up because sun gazing is a very important thing, and I teach it in this class. And I find in the wintertime, especially, really important for me to get up when the sun is coming up and I sun gaze through the trees right in this window over here. And then there's another window on the other side of the house, and I sun gaze at the end of the day. So no matter where you are, I hope that you are able to set what area of the world, even though I know Hans is up in Sweden. Sweden is a beautiful place, but it gets dark this time of year. Wherever you are, to try to create an opportunity for you to do real sun gazing, especially on non-cloudy days. So we just had a couple of days of tons of clouds, and I have to get over there and sun gaze. So wrap it up for right now. All the notes that I read from over here are available in the PDF, and I almost always include the PDF in the description of the YouTube videos. And it's worth reading the notes because they're pretty extensive, and I always get to things that I didn't get a chance to get to, or sometimes I speak about them in a different way, because you could tell I was speaking rather extemporaneously today, but that I can't always cover every single thing that I want to get to. So I always go through them like, and get a chance to get to that, but I hit the major high points, and also we only have 2 hours. So please do check out the PDF, as that will also augment, and then definitely do your homework, watch the actual recorded teachable lessons, because I go through them all the time and I'm always getting new insights from new perspectives on them. Joanne is beautiful. She's saying, I'm choosing greatness for all. Pedro says, love the lasagna, love back to you, or the lasagna loves you too. Thank you, Pedro. And Art says, enjoy the sun, enjoy this session. Thank you. Trish says, we love you, Aurora. Love received. And thank you so much, Trish. And thank you for your own contributions and your own questions and wondering. Thank you very much, everyone.